Committee will come to order. Okay,
Why?
thank you.
It's not this project.
You
said it
If there's
to me.
no objection, I would consider the option of having the GHD presentation first. It's shorter, and we have some folks from Mashpee who came for that, and we could send Jeff home early for a change.
Although I wanted to hear some of the shellfish
Oh,
stuff,
you can stick
You're
around?
welcome to stay.
You can stay.
but I'll scoot out after that.
Okay. Is that fair?
That's
reasonable?
That's fine.
Okay.
Whatever
So
you guys want
moved.
to do.
Okay.
I have printouts of I don't know if people have
Yep,
it or not.
send them
Pass
send them
around.
around. For those who don't know, the committee met last week in Mashpee with the Mashpee Sewer Committee and talked about Wacoit Bay. In the course of meeting with them and talking with them, we learned that we have the same consultant and that they've done a lot of work, and we thought it would be worth our while to see how far they've gotten in addressing their town's issues, which, at least at one point, are going to be our town's issues too in Wacoit Bay. So Jeff, who is wearing the hat of a consultant to them and to us, told me he could bring a short presentation that spells out what they are doing and then take questions.
You need to keep talking because he's not warming up yet, okay?
Well, let's see. What are we talking?
I essentially gave the same presentation to the Barnstable CAC because they share on Mashpee side, the Papaneset Bay side. So
This is a used presentation, and so it costs us a lot less.
Should cost us nothing.
CAC is Community Advisory Committee or something? like-
yes, I think it's a Citizens Advisory.
Citizens Advisory Committee. And that's the equivalent in Barnstable to what we have here, the Water Quality Committee?
Paul might be able to fill in more. It's pretty equivalent.
Is it appointed by the council, by the Barnstable
I'm
council?
not sure. I'm a representative from
Mashpee.
Mashpee, newly appointed to that group, so I'm not really sure what they make up, how they get there. But
I
I
see.
know they do forward recommendations to the council.
Okay, all right, good.
And just beforehand, there's nothing to stop them from coming to our meetings. We don't have, if you need, we can send you a formal invite.
Okay,
All set?
you're on.
Excellent. Jeff Gregg from GHD, and what I'd like to do tonight is just present a fairly brief summary of what the town of Mashpee is and where they are in their planning process. I know that there was a joint meeting a week or so ago, and you heard a little bit about what's going on. And so, as I had said earlier, we had made this presentation to the Barnstable CAC because they're interested in Papaneset Bay and the shared watershed on that side. And so I figured it would be of benefit to do the same for the Water Quality Management Committee. And if you have comments or questions, then I can certainly answer what I can tonight and get you other information you need. So, where we are at Mashpee's project started back in 2001. They started the process. Then the MEP program, they had actually gotten on board before the MEP really came into being, and they partnered with SMAS, they partnered with us because there was a lot of work going on in Wacoit Bay at the time. And then we were contracted to do what they called a nitrogen, watershed nitrogen management plan. I have to think about it because it's different in every town. So their focus was nitrogen, and there's always a lot of questions about what about phosphorus and what about other things. But the main goal back in 2001 was to look at nitrogen for the entire planning area of Mashpee and some adjoining towns, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So as part of that, we had gone through the process, and then when the MEP program came into being, things paused, and then we started back up in earnest in around 2005, 2006. We issued a needs assessment report in 2007. a technology screening, which is some of what you've seen in your alternative screening analysis report that talked about the various different technologies. And then in 2008, we issued a draft screening alternatives analysis where the town had said, we'd like to look at these 5 kind of alternative plans. And then we did some site investigation, and then we took that information and we ran some MEP model runs, or we didn't run them, but SMS ran some with that information. Then we took that information and we boiled it down, and then we created 3 new alternatives, which is kind of where we are right now. We ran those through the MEP model and did that back in, or we submitted them back in 2010. MEP, sorry, in 2011. And MEP ran the model, and we just got the results this past November. And so I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And then Point Bay draft report just came out, and that was what the joint presentation was about the other week. And so now we're trying to incorporate that information and keep the process moving forward so we can develop our alternative screening analysis report. So in 2008, we had these 5 scenarios, and the 5 scenarios, they were very restrictive in the sense that the town wanted to go through and say, okay, we're going to put all these caveats on these various scenarios, knowing that we're going to ultimately take pieces of probably each of them and morph them together, but we kind of want to see how things play out. So one of them was, for example, we don't want to see you make any improvements to any of the existing treatment facilities. They'll just kind of do their thing and deal with their build out, and then we'll have to deal with everybody else on some other type of system or some other type of process. And then we had a scenario where we expanded on those. And then we had a scenario where they had another consultant come in and talk about Nitrex for the entire town and various different applications of the Nitrex technology. Then they had the fair share reduction, which was born out of the pilot project that they did in Pompanesett Bay, where they looked at what Barnstable, Mashpee's, and Sandwich's fair share were. And what we were tasked with is, well, you gotta take that to build out, and then also look at, you gotta kind of guesstimate what those fair shares would be for the Point Bay side, because there wasn't a pilot project that kind of broke it all out. So we had to kind of do that analysis as well. And then we had a scenario 5, which was, well, if we got rid of the existing treatment facilities there, turn them into pumping stations or whatever, use their collection system, because they already have those, and then build 1 or 2 either new facilities, or in this case, I think we had 1 new large facility in New Seabury, using that facility, and run through those. And then we ran scenarios. We took the rainbow spreadsheets that were developed as part of the MEP project. We looked at our nitrogen loads. We looked at what our septic loads that we were leaving in certain areas, what the treatment process, what level of treatment we were getting, plugged them into different spots for different recharge areas, and gave them to MEP and said, run the models. And they were only looking at the time at Wacoit Bay East, so they kind of ignored Wacoit Bay proper and everything west. So what the new report that's just come out was about the whole system. They were strictly looking at the eastern part of the system, which included a part of Falmouth, and then the watershed goes up into Sandwich, and then parts into Mashpee. So they ran those, and some of the scenarios met, some of them didn't. There were modifications that were made. We took all that information and we sat down with the sewer commission, and we churned out, well, where we go now. And so we took all that information and we came up with these 3 new options, and we called them options versus scenarios because we knew that we'd get back into scenarios and it was just getting kind of confusing. So we went another way. And so we came up with these 3 options, option 1A, 1B, and 1C. And they're 1A, 1B, and 1C because we started off with an option 1 and an option 2, and then those got morphed and changed. So that's how we kind of ended up there. So in option 1A, the main driver was, well, we're going to take Sandwich and their flows for these areas up at the top of this map, these areas that are highlighted, those parts of town, will go outside of the watershed and be dealt with outside of the watershed. These green areas, let's see if I can get my arrow back again, in Barnstable, same kind of thing. And the orange area in Falmouth, same kind of thing. There is a portion on the eastern side of Moonakis, Quashnet, whatever you want to call that river, that actually stayed within the planning area. The ultimate planning area for our project in Mashpee actually is this red outside line. So it covers parts of Barnstable, parts of Sandwich, and parts of Falmouth. So the main driver was, well, those pieces go out, and then we had various different treatment facilities that we were looking at. We were looking at different recharge locations, and I apologize, the map's kind of small. If you wanted me to take the time, I could open it up and we could look at the map a little bit more in detail, but we can deal with that with in question points. And so we picked a bunch of different areas where we wanted to recharge, and then we took that as option, I think we went to 1B, so option 1A.
Could you walk through the map a little bit? Because we're not as familiar with it as you are, and you know, where are these places and what are these colors?
So, let me see if it's not open it up. Inside, so what we've done is we've taken all of Mashpee and then we color coded things. So all this dark green up here is Sandwich. The green over here is parts of Barnstable. And this orange area down in here is parts of Falmouth. And what each of these other colors represent different, for lack of a better term, sewer sheds or service areas that would go to a particular recharge location or treatment facility location. So anything and I apologize, my cursor keeps going away. Anything in pink will go into the same location. Anything in orange is going to the same location. All the yellow is essentially going to the same location, and so on and so forth. And we broke the town out under each of these options into these various groups based on our discussions with the town of Mashpee.
Is this current conditions or build out?
Everything we were looking at was built out.
Was it build out?
So what, I'm sorry.
Okay, and so the first thing I see on that map is that the piece that's Barnstable is actually quite small if you've colored in everything that is Barnstable.
We haven't colored, and that's a key point that what I can do here is in this map. It's a little easier if I actually open the map.
The light yellow is area that you don't treat at all?
So if I open up this, map, so you can actually see what's going on, this kind of salmon-looking color, that's stuff that we weren't touching.
And the reason for not touching it is?
It's either conservation land, MMR, it could be just isolated spots where we were just leaving septic. Well, the goal was we took the rainbow spreadsheets and said, well, how much nitrogen do we have to remove? So if you remove all the wastewater, it kind of sets the baseline, and then we start slowly feeding in, well, I can put a little nitrogen, and if I discharge it here, and I get some attenuation up at these back road sites through John's Pond, you know, how much flow can I get there before it creates a load that exceeds, you know, and based on just that, that's just based on the land use model. So it doesn't take into account all the other things that are going on in the embayment, but gives you a rough idea of what you're trying to shoot towards. And then we take all this pink area, and that would go to a particular location. These shaded spots here, 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 some of them are very hard to see. They typically represent either potential treatment plant locations, recharge locations. Some of them, there's some existing INAs down here. These black spots here are existing where they already have like a cluster development that has, you know, INA systems. We didn't flag every INA technology because Mashpee actually has quite a few relative to other towns. But Barnstable's boundary, as you were asking, kind of comes over here. This is that there's a new treatment facility that is located at a development right on the spit of Barnstable that comes into Mashpee. Then Barnstable comes down, but we were trying to leave some of these areas unaddressed. But because of which watershed you were in, you had to pull out a certain amount of nitrogen, and that's where we'll ultimately get into the balancing of, well, if I don't take it out of this spot, then somewhere else that feeds into that same watershed, I'm gonna have to remove that equivalent part of nitrogen. And then as you move down, you can see Falmouth's boundary actually comes along here and then runs down here. And so you can see this yellow area is actually being addressed within Mashpee, and the orange area has to be addressed outside of the eastern parts of the watershed based on our analysis here.
Is that CPIT or where is it?
I'm sorry.
No, CPIT is south of
That's-
28.
Okay, so where's
So-
this yellow area?
That's the west side of Quashnet River.
Yeah, the Quashnet River is right,
Right,
it
north.
runs right through here.
Okay, what streets in Falmouth are we talking
It's Municus Road and
Yeah, there's actually not too much development there. I don't know.
Run more or less down Metoxet Road from
Metoxet.
from Route 28, and then above Route 28, it's back in the, I don't know, just
It's
know
actually
what it is
fairly
above Rock.
rural and fairly wooded, as I remember.
Trying to think of the road that's on the east side of 28, the development out there. It's,
it's all east of Carrot Shop Road, though. It's all east of Carrot Shop, I think.
Yeah, east and north.
East and north of
East
Carrot.
and north of Carrot Shop,
Yeah.
right.
Up to the Municus River boundary, basically.
The
Of
cross-hatching in the central upper part, look, is that little cross streets? In the orange?
This right here?
Yeah,
Those are actually parcels.
so that doesn't imply rural to me. That looks like a lot of houses.
One of them is that new one that was built on the parcel that was sold a number of years ago, and well, quite one of them is
yeah, I don't think
43
that is
houses
the-
or something like that.
John Julie's subdivision?
There's the Ostrom Road,
What's it called?
is one,
Irene's.
Quashnet
Irene's
Way.
place,
Yeah,
yeah. So one of them is Irene's place.
Red Brook Road.
Meadow Neck Road, Metoxet.
Well, they're getting themselves oriented, Jeff. What you're showing us now is work that was done back in, you said 2008 to 2010? Is that what you're saying here, or is this the latest?
This is the latest right now.
Okay, I was trying to get the time, this is the latest.
This is the latest, but
Thank you.
the stuff that was back done
It was
before,
Carrot Shop, and some of
This
these
is where Mashpee's at now.
yes,
Okay.
this is where they are now. So
Thank you.
this is,
That's
this is
it.
what option, I forget which one.
I got confused there, sorry.
Option 1A,
I got-
so-
I
I
lived
just
there.
picked one of them. I could open up all the maps, but they're all essentially the same. The biggest difference between the options 1A, 1B, and 1C, in 1A, the town said, well, we're gonna try to focus on trying to get as much of our wastewater into this, what they call sort of the golden triangle, anything that's outside of Quoit Bay watershed and outside of Pompanesett Bay watershed. And so the two areas, the area that they really focused on was New Seabury. They wanted to take advantage of New Seabury. That's always been part of their plan, is to try to use infiltration, drip irrigation, or whatever inside, an area that they had identified in one of the golf courses to recharge treated effluent. What the task was is that, well, if that's not available to us and we have to do something else, a less desirable but an option would be, well, the town could consider relocating wells that they have located at Rockland. It's not an ideal situation. It certainly has its challenges of its own, but if they can't get New Seabury and they need to get recharge out of there, they're trying to find spots into this area to get it out of the watershed, because these two watersheds are very heavily loaded and they're very sensitive. So there's a lot of nitrogen that has to be removed from these watersheds.
If you put a well at Rock Landing, if you put it in the well at Rock Landing, does that just go into the sound? Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't put it in the well, but yeah, if we put it at that location and relocated the wells and did recharge there, the idea is that when we did the USGS modeling, when we modeled down at Site 7, which is in New Seabury,
Right.
and then again at Rock Landing, The majority of it goes out. When you start moving up closer to Rock Landing, though, you do get little spurs that go back into Pompanesett Bay and little ones that go back over to Quoit Bay. So it's not 100% out of the watershed because you're getting closer into the edges. You can see this blue line right here, and this blue line right here is fairly close. Whereas once you're down here at Site 7, which is this piece right here, it's hard to see, but there's a shaded kind of, looks almost like a backwards number 1. That goes directly into Nantucket Sound.
And Jeff, what's the scale of the flows that you were looking at here? 1 million, 2 million?
Around 1 million gallons plus.
And level of treatment you were anticipating?
Well, outside of the watershed, if you're outside of the watershed and you're not in a zone 2, then all you really have to meet is less than 10 milligrams
10.
per liter, 30,
Okay.
30, 10, 10.
So basically you were looking at a site to get, for your effluent disposal, 1 million gallons that build out, or whatever you got here, around 10 milligrams per liter for
Yep.
the treatment level.
As you start getting closer to Rock Landing or getting closer to the watersheds, then you have to consider what kind of level of treatment depending on how much nitrogen is going back into other spots. You had a question?
How many sub-areas are we dealing with here?
I don't have the
roughly.
I don't have the table, but it was like, let's say 10.
Okay.
I'm guesstimating. We had there's just kind of like our own little rainbow table
Okay.
where we went through each of these areas and kind of showed,
Okay.
here's the treatment, and some of them would have either multiple treatment areas or multiple recharge areas, depending on how we were grouping them and where we wanted to put that water.
And a certain number of them have a treatment system in place now.
Correct.
Do any of those treat to any level?
Most of them, they all have permits that are less, they all have permits less than 10. Now, some of them are achieving better than that, but they're also, some of them aren't built out. So like New Seabury is designed for like 300,000 gallons per day. They see like 30, and they hit, less than 5, less than 3 milligrams per liter, but there's no load, they're not getting anything. So the question always comes up, they're getting great performance now, but the key is we need to know what performance they're getting when they're at the design level of that treatment process. So as part of our plan, anything that stays within the watershed, we were looking at 3 milligrams per liter total nitrogen on an average annual basis, because all the MEP work is presuming that it's an average annual load that goes, because they average it all. They don't say, well, is it a summer, winter, things like that. So when you go back to 1B, apologize, it's taking a second. The difference in 1B was, so now the New Seabury Rock Landing area isn't available. We're going to try to put flow in this little triangle, this the Keeter property. It kind of has a part of it that's actually outside of both watersheds, but in reality, let's face it, when you put all that water at that location, load is going to go into the adjacent embayments, but some has the potential of going out towards Nantucket Sound, so there is some benefit to it. It's also upgrading a Rock Landing well, so even though you may get the benefit of that location and some of that going out of the watershed, you still may have to treat it to an incredibly high level if the Rock Landing wells remain in service and aren't relocated to another suitable location. Once we did 1A and 1B, the town came back and said, well, we really want to see an apples-to-apples comparison. So they made us create option 1C, because in 1B, we didn't necessarily, I think we actually went really conservative and we said, okay, well, in addition, all the flow in Sandwich is going to stay just recharged within our watersheds. Only that little piece of Falmouth is going to go out, and then only a little piece of Barnstable may leave, but everything else is going to be staying within. We were trying to kind of do a worst case scenario. Well, they said, well, let's run the same option of you don't have the New Seabury or Rock Landing sites available, so you have to use Keeter, but we'll assume that Sandwich is going out, Barnstable's going out, and Falmouth is doing the same thing that we had in the 1A. And I know it's a little bit confusing, but that was the logic between why we had those sort of three scenarios. So we went through that and we had the MEP model run again for those three options. And MEP came back and said, well, all three of your scenarios meet it for Papaneset Bay. All three of them meet the thresholds for the Quashnet River, which is actually a really hard one to meet. All three of them met the thresholds for eelgrass in the Great and Little River, but all three options don't meet the values in J2 Pond and Hamlin Pond. And what was interesting is when we did it the first time, those were the ones we actually hit. And we actually struggled with some of the other watersheds. What's happened is, and you can see here at the bottom, that, you know, we aren't missing by, in this case, we're missing by, you know, hundredths. So we're not missing by a lot. But some of that has to do, and I can't remember if we had that discussion during the last meeting, is that now that we're looking at the entire Hoyt Bay system, and they're assuming Falmouth isn't doing anything because they didn't have information, because obviously Falmouth didn't have the report, so they didn't have a scenario for that, that there's that nitrogen load in there, and some of that is coming back into those two embayments, and is, as a result, keeping us from meeting that threshold.
Talk about the Quashnet River. Were you meeting the Quashnet River even if Falmouth didn't do anything on its side of the Quashnet River? Or were you assuming that Falmouth took everything out?
It's based on Falmouth, this piece of Falmouth being,
Yes.
this whole little triangle of Falmouth that's in
Yes.
our planning area.
Yes.
Something's happening with that.
We're assuming that's going to happen. Yeah.
Assuming that's gonna happen, but assuming that we don't know what Falmouth at that time was gonna be doing with all the rest of, you know, Childs River, Eagle
Oh, okay,
River,
sure.
and
Yeah,
Hoyt Bay
okay,
proper.
yeah. So you got Quashnet by assuming that we were going to do that piece of Falmouth.
And
Yeah,
we're
okay.
also assuming that that's getting, you know, essentially that's 100% of that orange piece
Yeah.
is going into some other, you know, it's getting treated and recharged and dealt with in some other watershed.
Big problem.
Yeah, and so the possibility of that happening all depends on whether or not there's a watershed that could take, you know, that has some capacity. Like on the other side, Pompanesett Bay, there are parts of Pompanesett Bay where we found that they have a higher assimilative capacity, so we've been able to, you know, load those. So as part of our modeling process, we were kind of focusing on the Willow Bend Golf Course in one of the watersheds, and that's kind of where our target is. And so we've actually put a lot of flow over in that spot for the very reason that the Mashpee River is very sensitive. So we're trying to get it out of the Mashpee River watershed and move it over one. And it's this, you guys are dealing with it and all the rest of your South Coast embayments. It's a difficult balancing act of trying to figure out where all this flow is going to go. And when you have limited recharge areas, you're kind of stuck. So we did have to make the assumption that the town of Falmouth is going to be doing something there. Now, that could change, and there could be, maybe that's getting treated to a different level and staying within the watershed, and something else is happening, shellfish, aquaculture, you know, maybe some more of that flow is going in and getting recharged in Mashpee, or maybe the Golden Triangle opens up for us and we're able to recharge some of that flow. So it's to your advantage as well. We can get it out of that area and out into basically the Nantucket Sound.
Show us again where the Golden Triangle is.
It's hard to see.
It's not the
key.
Keeter property?
Well, the Keeter property's kind of like at the upper, I don't know, the apex of
Okay.
that. And then it fans out this way, so it's
Okay.
this triangle.
It's a wedge
It's a wedge,
that,
essentially where that
that
blue
flows directly out to Vineyard Sound. Okay, we have a wedge at the bottom of every one of our peninsulas.
Right.
Yep.
There's
This
your
is,
wedge.
this is the wedge.
This is our wedge.
Okay, fine.
Fine.
Except you call it the Golden Triangle.
Well, I don't call it that. I mean,
Okay.
I've used that term, it's been called that.
Okay, just so
It
we,
is what it is. It's the, yeah, it is the wedge that's
Okay.
between those two watersheds.
got it. Well, we know the importance of wedges.
So, so essentially, we ran through those model scenarios, and now we're at the point of working on completing our screening analysis report. So we're gonna build off of the scenarios that we did, the first 5, these new 3, the model results for that, the technologies that we've looked at, compiling those, and establishing the framework for our recommended plan. We're not gonna have the recommended plan, but we wanna establish the framework and get that information off to the state and say, okay, this is where we are. You've already seen the needs assessment, we've got the alternative screenings part, and this is the direction in which we're going as part of the recommended plan. And now we need to incorporate the work that the Shellfish Constable's doing with regards to those types of projects in Mashpee and how those are going to fit in, and what the town's going to do with stormwater, and how they want to manage wastewater, and which facilities they may or may not be able to take ownership and move forward with, and just how they want to deal with things like build out, and how they want to deal with ownership and all those. There's all the questions that everyone's struggling with. Mashpee's no different. They're essentially right between Falmouth and Barnstable with regards to where they are in the planning process as well. So we've done that. And then as part of the once we've developed a recommended plan, we'll get into phasing of that plan and funding of that plan. And then we go through that whole submittal process of submitting the draft and getting your.
How about nitrates? Tell us your history with nitrates.
My history with nitrates?
Not your personal history, the Mashpee experience.
So the nitrates, what came about with the nitrates process is the town initially, as part of MEP's work, they had asked them to run a scenario outside of us that was just doing, I think, just doing INAs, if I remember correctly. They're just doing everything in septic systems to show that they couldn't meet it with just those types of systems. Another consultant came in, asked the town for a nominal amount of money if they could create a scenario to be blended in with some of these scenarios as the town was going through these options, which became the nitrates scenario. And so they broke it into 3 different approaches, like a nitrates INA for everybody, like each individual home, cluster type nitrates system, so some of those same kind of groupings that we had, they had similar ones. I think they had 16 to 20 of them all around in various different areas where they'd have essentially a cluster type system. And then they had a PRB approach. But the PRB approach didn't have, was more just as conceptual, that didn't lay out areas, and I don't even remember if he developed any costs. And he created a draft report regarding that, and I don't remember all his findings. Essentially, the consultant's push was, the individual ones is going to be a bit cumbersome for everybody. You could essentially do it with a cluster type system. He ran his model scenarios. When the results came out, he, like us, didn't meet all of the areas. Then he went back and worked with MEP to move some flow around and get some additional flow outside of the watershed, which allowed him to meet those threshold requirements in those different areas. When we were tasked with the town, we didn't go back and modify them because that's what our options 1, 2, and 1A, 1, 2, so on and so forth were. What happened from there is then he also came back and said, well, I'd also like to look at doing a pilot project in the Pirates Cove area. And he had a bunch of different options, all INAs, PRBs, and cluster type system, if I remember correctly. So as one of our scenarios, we identified that area as a potential pilot area, and we just assigned a value of, we're not going to say what's happening there, but we're going to presume that flow is going to be treated to essentially 3 milligrams per liter, and it's going to get recharged there, and we'll just carry that value. But whether it's done with PRBs or a nitrates cluster or whatever, that hadn't been decided. And so where we are now and coming up with the framework is, well, the town's trying to find out which areas they want to target for, possibly cluster type systems. And when we had gone and looked at, as part of our scenarios, there's a piece in some of the options up here that's just north of Santua Pond that's isolated. And it's, it's off in its own little area. It would essentially be a very good location for a cluster type system because it just doesn't blend in next to anything else. I mean, you could deal with it in a conventional way, but I mean, even a cluster system has a collection system associated with it. So, but at least it's contained in its own little area. So that was, one of those areas, and there's probably others, because it was his approach for nitrix was fairly broad brush. He identified some parcels that aren't town owned, or they'd have to be negotiated or purchased, or they just aren't available. So there's some of that would have to be worked out. So because it wasn't a very detailed thing, it was out there to show that the concept is conceivable. But the town right now is going to look at that compared to, they already have a decentralized approach. They already got treatment plants all over the place.
How many are there? 12? 10?
I think there's 10. Yeah, it depends, because you start adding in the one, there's a new one at the Wampanoag, there's the new one in Barnstable, and then the school has one up in Sandwich, but it doesn't have a permit. So there's between 8 and 12 of them. Yeah.
Has anyone in Mashpee mentioned or discussed at all the idea of using composting toilets plus gray water treatment systems as a possibility?
We haven't gone there yet, but they also have several islands, and I don't even know, some of them may be shared with Falmouth. I'm not, they're right in that, a couple of them are.
Secaucet.
Yeah, Secaucet, and then they've got Poppy Island on the other side.
I don't think they'll put them on Poppy.
And I know, and that's where it comes down to. That's certainly a possibility because it's an island, but the likelihood of depending on the makeup of the neighborhood, there might not be a feasible solution. But that's where we are right now. We're taking those next steps and saying, okay, well, what are all these other pieces that we need to put in there? Our approach here wasn't to focus on the technology of the collection system. It was, how much nitrogen can we physically get into the ground in this watershed in this location? And that's pretty much, and we said 3 milligrams per liter, and it would go in here. And then the key now is well, how are you gonna get it there? What are the steps you're gonna take? Because they're not just gonna build all this stuff and then, we're gonna go right to 3. They're gonna try to maximize, or my recommendation has always been to them is, you've got all these existing facilities, get the people connected to those. At least they're treating it at 10 milligrams per liter, which is better than what they're doing now with a septic system, if they're adjacent and you can get them in feasibly and use that capacity if they have it available to you. Look to then expand as those facilities need to, facilities reach a design line. So they have to be upgraded and things like that, or at least maintained. So if there's the opportunity to do that, you look at those kinds of systems. If there are systems that are small, that are just gonna putter along and they can hang out on their own, you may just leave those alone. Like the Roach Brothers type, there's a facility there, but it's not really conducive to, expanding and connecting a bunch of neighborhoods to it. But it may be one that, hey, it's getting treatment, it's meeting its permit, you can handle it's such a small flow, and at 10 milligrams per liter, it gets washed out when you can pick up other areas. So those are all things that they're going to have to struggle with, like everybody else. And then again, it gets into the discussion Brian House had. Well, this is build out. We had to look at we got to look at build out. But are you ever going to get there? And are there opportunities for the town to do other things?
Where is the town roughly in its to build out? Are they halfway to build out? Has anybody looked at that? The peninsulas that the town in Falmouth is looking at, we're at 95% or even 100.
The man from Mashpee, but
I think we're a lot closer to build out. I mean, this is a very small jump, I think, between current and, or even baseline.
Well,
I think-
actually, now I remember, didn't Bryan House have 41%?
The
where'd that
big,
come
the
from?
big thing is that the town has a lot of facilities that have gone through the first part of permitting, so they're approved to put that in. I mean, that, when Tom went,
To absorb.
when, you know, Tom Fidel, just town planner, went through that whole process to come up with the build-out numbers, he spent a lot of time going through all their existing build-out information to look at all the developments and all possible developments and what people had been approved for, and he built that in. Even though they aren't built, they're, you know, right
You
now
said
they're
they're
paper
approved.
subdivisions, but they're there. So those are all built into the model, and that's what we're building off of. So,
The other thing that mitigates that is the seasonality of some of the properties.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Virginia.
I had two other questions. I haven't heard you mention anything about central collection system going to MMR. Was that ever discussed?
it is discussed. It wasn't when we were doing this, MMR hadn't, there've been, let's put it this way. The MMR has come up and gone away, come up and gone away. And I remember sitting, I don't know, I was with Jerry probably 5-6 years ago when we were first talking about.
That's consistent. Move on.
Okay, okay, all right.
So then they just came up with their new.
The latest,
Hey,
yeah.
let's see what can happen.
Now it's up.
And that's, you know,
And the up part now, has Mashpee thought about sending any of it to MMR?
most definitely.
And what part would it be, showing me that
Well,
map?
it'd be as much as they could, it'd be as much as they could receive. But in the reality, I mean, initially it would be to focus, it would be essentially to focus on the Point Bay side, because it's the, you know, it's closest to the base, it's the
Yes.
closest to that facility, and it's the toughest watershed to meet
deal
those
with.
limits.
Okay,
The town has provided some very gross numbers to MMR as part of their, you know, they're going through and doing their study to see whether or not it's fiscally, you know, in their best interest for the military to sell off or continue or expand or whatever they're gonna do. So they provided some of that, and I believe Falmouth provided some numbers, and Sandwich did, and again, it's all gonna depend on, you know, what you can get. And the idea is, yeah, if you can recharge and discharge up at the disposal bed,
Canal.
right by the canal.
If either town used that option, is it correct to assume that then the marginal cost for the other town piggybacking on that would be reduced? In other words, there's an opportunity for sharing.
Yeah, well, you mean.
Once you're digging a trench and putting a pipe to go from A to B,
Yeah, I mean,
to make the pipe twice as big is not cost twice as much.
well, I guess the way I look at it is if there was a portion of Falmouth that was going up to the base that was adjacent to a portion of Mashpee.
Exactly.
A good solution would be for those two towns to communicate and say, can you take this, would you be able to receive these kinds of flows into your system to go up to MMR? And then the question is if it goes away from MMR, I mean, because the discussions have been, it goes away, or it comes back and it gets treated somewhere, and then you have to come back and deal with the recharge.
I think MMR has said that what they're looking at is they have excess treatment capacity and far more discharge capacity than they have treatment capacity. So that they had laid out potential routes for everybody to get there. And that's when they stopped. They didn't cost it out, I don't think, unless you provided additional cost.
What time frame? What time frame are we talking about this occurring?
Well, no, they came up with several options, as you said.
But did they come up with those options recently, or are these like the ones in the past?
2 months ago.
Yeah,
Maybe
Maybe
there's a meeting.
I don't know that they've released, they were supposed to in January, I think.
it's at the commander's, it's in the military hands to review.
So this is the most current meetings,
Yes.
the direction of the most
Yep.
current meetings, which was
Yep.
different from what they were doing several years ago, which was,
Correct.
well, you could do this here, but get it off our property at the end.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Yep.
So now they're changing their tune a little bit.
Yeah, 'cause I think as part of even Falmouth's planning process, it was, oh yeah, you can use this land, you can build a facility here, we'll keep our facility going, and then you gotta deal with your flow, however you're gonna do
Distribute
it.
it someplace else. Yeah.
One of the big differences in this round, I believe, is they're not talking about sending the flow back to the communities.
Right.
Very
No,
good.
that's key.
And also, I was told that the military wanted several options to evaluate, and they don't have a single recommendation in front of them right now, so.
Good. Question, I just want to be sure I understood, when this little orange piece that is Falmouth,
Yep,
when you were doing your analysis of what goes on here,
yep.
were you working on the presumption that Falmouth would do something in that triangle, take the flow out of that triangle someplace off in Falmouth, wherever that might be?
Yep.
So when you were looking at recharges inside the Mashpee area, you weren't taking the flow out of that area as part of the recharge. But if it was in the best interest of this little slice of Wacoit to pick that flow up, have you made an estimate of what that flow would be in that zone?
Yeah, as part of the, just a little of the history, because I've been working on this for a long time. Falmouth has been interested, Falmouth has been all in, Falmouth has been all out, like all of it.
It's like the military reservation issue, it's on
Split
again,
down
off
the
again,
middle,
right?
it's, you know, we're taking this in, we're
Right.
taking this in. And so where we ended up as part of these three scenarios is the Moonacus River, Quashnet River kind of became the dividing line, and Mashpee said, okay, we'll deal with everything east of that point in town, and everything west of it, we're gonna have to assume, or we're going to make the assumption that it comes out of the watershed, and basically gives you that zero nitrogen load there. And it
How much
gets you-
forward?
You never did get that, but I just want to be clear.
Yep.
The analysis you've done so far presumes that the flow that's currently in that piece of watershed there is not being taken and recharged wherever you're looking for other recharge areas. Falmouth's doing something different with it.
Falmouth is doing something with it west of this plan.
And
Similar to Sandwich doing
I
something.
just want to be sure that that's what you had.
Yeah, no,
and there are a few houses east of the Quashnet which are in Falmouth, and you were just assuming that was going to be dealt with. There are, as a matter of
All that
fact. I
yellow.
believe.
all this, there's a chunk of yellow
Yeah,
right through here.
right, that's all.
And I apologize, I can't do the mouse very well, but there's a chunk of yellow right in here that's inside Falmouth, that's actually coming into Mashpee and being treated and recharged either within, you know, the Site 6 or New Seabury or
Okay.
something like that in that area. So it's kind of the same discussion of, well, would you send some to MMR? It's kind of like, well, Mashpee, if they did this, built facilities and then said to Falmouth, we've made provisions to accommodate all your flow. You just have to, you need to put in that infrastructure or whatever. We could take that and it would go in there. And then there'd be some obviously agreement with regards to the treatment and recharge. But the idea was that it would come this way as opposed to going back towards Falmouth.
Okay.
Just a comment, between 15 to 20% of the loads, between 15 to 20% of the loads in the two basins are from outside of Mashpee's borders, so it makes it increasingly difficult to try to plan for that, not knowing either the, let's say, the amount or the plans for those separate communities.
Yes.
The other thing about that balance there, so if we were talking collection facility, we have a couple of river crossings that complicate the issue of the narrow peninsulas. And it's just tough terrain to look at. So
Yeah.
the more we know about the area, the easier it makes it.
Yeah. And did you ever have a flow for that area?
Yeah, we have flows for the whole
Okay.
plan. I don't know them off the top of my head, but we have flows for those whole areas. And we looked at, as part of these scenarios, this is kind of the way it laid out. But in previous options, we had talked about, well, do the islands go with INAs, or do they have some other thing where it's just dealt with on the islands, both Poppy and Squanset, and I apologize, I forget the third island. Is that new?
Mononoscore,
There
yes,
we
that's a
go.
big one.
So,
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments or questions from the committee or from the public attendees here?
So essentially where we are is we're in the process of doing that screening, getting the screening analysis finally pulled together, and then also developing that recommended plan. And we started that framework already with the town at our last meeting prior to the one that you had. And then we'll go through the same process of we'll submit a draft of that document, we'll get the MEPA comments, and then have to deal with all the MEPA comments, and then ultimately address those and move forward with a final plan, submittal and implementation schedule, and costing will all be part of all this whole process. And we've got a public education, we have a web page, We haven't issued any flyers recently because we've been waiting to get to the point of actually having something to issue to people. So it's been a long process, and I know you guys appreciate it because we're going through the same thing. So, and then as part of all these things, you're going to be dealing with refining the implementation schedule, dealing with appropriating the funds, and all, again, the same adaptive management and things that you guys are struggling with as well. So,
Hilda.
How much knowledge or experience do you have with eco-toilets?
how much do I have personally? I have personally very little. I don't have one. I've seen them. I've talked to vendors about them. I've seen the various different types, incinerating and composting, and I've
Urine
seen
diversion.
urine diversion, which I think both you have just straight urine diversion and you have urine diversion with composting,
Yes.
I believe. Is that correct?
Mhm.
I know our company has done projects, and we have some demonstration projects that they've done in Australia as well with those types of technologies. I remember I even had a coworker that used to go on vacation to Maine, and he used to talk about how they had the island that he would go to a vacation on. They had composting toilets, and you had to take his little baggie of compost and go and dispose of it where they need to. Is there something particular that you're
I'm
interested
just
in?
curious because it never comes up as part of your thinking, as part of a way to find a solution that might be different if there's an issue of.
Well, it's not that it hasn't come up, because we're trying to look at the long-term implementation of these things, some of that has to come from the town in terms of their policy making and what they're willing to do and how they're willing to implement that approach. It's just like it's like how they want to deal with INAs or nitrics or even cluster systems, or how they want to manage a bunch of package treatment facilities or a centralized facility. So again, there's that political factor and that policy making that needs to come about. So that's why I've tried to stay away from the whole, we're treating this or treating that. All I'm saying is if you took all this water and treated it and discharged it at 3 milligrams per liter, this is the load. If that changes and it just says within this watershed, the load that I'm allowed to recharge is this, and if I can get there with these 7 different technologies and these 7 different approaches that are approvable through the town, then you can do that. And it kind of eliminates the whole discussion of, what I'm trying to find out is where can I actually put any water? Where can I put that recharge? Where can I, what is that stress level of that nitrogen level? So that's what we're trying to do.
We have a time, we put it.
Yep.
We're starting to get into like a little bit of a side conversation about Mashpee's issues
Yep.
as opposed to like joint issues here. So
Yeah.
let's
Right.
try to stay on the focus.
Okay. Yep. Any more input on the Falmouth piece? It's helpful to know what you thought Mashpee thought we were doing. And,
Yes.
and helpful to know what Mashpee thinks it's doing. So,
It is indeed.
Well, I've just got a comment on the triangle piece you're talking about and the Quashnet River watershed in general.
For the folks at home
Yeah,
or viewing us, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Rick York. I'm Mashpee Shellfish Constable, but I'm also a Falmouth resident, so I'm here in 2 capacities tonight. But this plan talking about the Mashpee part, and that is that the Quashnet River, which goes down to the Moonicus River, it's the estuarine part of that. And then there's a large part in the north that's in Mashpee, and there's another part in the south that's in Falmouth, the triangle you're talking about. That is an area that's about, that area needs to be, it's about 25% of the reduction of nitrogen that needs to happen for the Quake Bay system in general. So
Not much.
it's a pretty loaded system, and it's a very small estuary. And that is an area where we can't use shellfish. So just in future discussions, that it's just too small, and it's also close to shellfishing. So it has, just for reference, and both towns are going to be involved in that watershed.
It's a very tough watershed to deal with. I mean, the Point Bay East, as we refer to it, is very tight.
I'd say we specialize in tough watersheds.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think they're all probably tough, but
really. Okay, well, any other comments or questions from the committee or the public here? If not, thank you for
Thank
this. We're
very welcome.
We're learning a lot. We're happy to have company in our travails.
Yes.
Okay, next topic is the one that was originally the first topic, which is the aquaculture demonstration project. Discussion of options presented by the Woods Hole Group, including any board action required. Board action will be required tonight. We have, this is crunch time as far as this project is concerned. We have to make some choices tonight with the recommendations of the consultant and the recommendations, hopefully, if Rick will stick around. And the choices are not going to all be clear, and they're not all guaranteed to be right, but we have to make them now because the time is floating by, and I don't want to explain to the public why we spent a whole year and a whole lot of money and didn't put any shellfish in come the spring. So I think the guidelines have got to be risk adverse. We can't get too complicated, we can't get too fancy, we can't undertake things that will blow up in our faces along the way. We really have to keep the goal in mind, which is to get shellfish in the water and measured the nitrogen reduction that produces as easily and as risk-free and as affordable as possible. So, you're on.
Just so everybody knows, I made a little table that's a summary of John's options. So his report had all these options, and these are just taken from that to help, hopefully help the discussion.
Okay, do we all have those?
And I'm sending them around right now.
Great. We'll need more.
Do you have more? Okay,
There should be 9 in front of you, but
9?
I made 9 copies.
Take mine or what?
All right, I'm doing them all. You take one for me, so
Eric and I can share.
Yeah, I guess.
Any of you can share.
Right.
Well,
Whatever.
Yeah, I'm not listening.
Okay.
How do you want to,
Well,
what would you like to do? I mean,
what
I have a presentation. First of all, my name is John Brawley from Woods Hole Group, and I have a presentation that we did not save on our network drive.
okay.
Microphone.
Well,
Do you want me to close it?
Yeah,
So what I've done is print out some copies.
okay.
Sorry
Okay.
about that. These things tend to happen when you need
Okay.
the things the most.
So you're going to pass those around?
Yeah, and I'm short a few also.
Well,
How many do we have?
Is that
So you
this
have to
thing
share.
here that you sent us? or
No,
not?
that's not that.
Okay.
This is a separate
Look at
presentation.
these guys.
Yeah.
We can share.
Who wants to share?
I'll share.
Yeah, we
we
can.
can share, I think, yeah.
Okay.
You guys will share?
I'll need to hold on to one so I can.
I've got the Steve's.
Yeah.
We need to really focus in on tonight's topics, which are what's going in the water this spring.
That's what this is all about.
Well, I see, but it's got a lot of other stuff in there that may not all be presented in great detail tonight.
Cut me off where you don't want to talk about this.
Okay.
But I'll start with the important stuff. The recommended approach for the little pond demonstration. So the second or third slide, you're going to see basically a diagram like this.
Okay.
This is what's written in the document that I sent out this week. Basically, the option that a few of us have discussed at length, which is an approach that you start with a town upweller with a certain number of seed, and you grow those out to term, and they get relayed at the end But halfway through the summer, you start with a lake, another spawn, another batch of seed in the upweller, and piggyback that behind it. That gets overwintered in Little Pond and begins to grow again in the spring, where you then piggyback on another new crop and repeat that process for 3 years. And what that does is that maximizes, without the addition of buying, spending the money to buy large seed in the spring, which we can't do this year because of the preparation that's involved with that. That maximizes the amount of nitrogen that you're going to remove from Little Pond. And the values in this presentation and in the document, in the tables, is only the assimilation, only what's going into tissue and shell, and we're not making any predictions about denitrification, but we're assuming that denitrification will be present, and so these are conservative estimates or predictions of removal. Okay.
Have you determined that the town upweller is available?
Yes.
Okay.
It is in the spring. There's a little asterisk here. It may not be available for the middle part of the summer.
It is not.
It is not unless there are a series that are being built, but I don't know if they're all spoken for.
When I spoke with Chuck, if I may.
Yeah, please, jump right in here.
Yeah, Chuck Martinson and I spoke today, and their plans for cohog growth include keeping the 3 upwellers that are being constructed right now for Falmouth Harbor full of cohogs until mid-September.
Right.
So if this phased approach could work, starting that second batch of seed in mid-September, that would be fine. He does not have plans to purchase a 4th upweller, but there is a location possible.
Right, I had the same discussion with him a couple days ago. So that would add about a $10,000 plus or minus.
So we know for a fact that the town is going to have 3 upwellers available this spring for our use. Is that correct?
The capacity for the 2 million in this example, yes.
Okay, and they're not using it for anything else, and they're available for us, and they're going to be, where are they right now? Are they?
They're ordered, and they need to get built. They're ordered, the components come in and they get constructed, and they'll be in and ready by May.
Okay, and they have sites for them, and they have permits. Do we need permits? Everything
They've
is.
been doing this for 10 years.
Okay, so it's a given. It's not a hope. Fine. Okay. This is going to be a concern every inch of the way here, because.
Right. Yeah, I understand that. And I mean, if there is a failure with the town's upweller for some reason, there may be others to draw upon. But we did talk to Chuck, and that's
good.
That's what he said.
Okay, so the 3 upwellers are available in May, and what size seed is going into them?
Well, it depends on, the town has an agreement with ARC to get 2 to 3 millimeter seed at $10 per thousand.
That's the 1/4 inch.
No, it's
it's small.
It's smaller than that.
Grain of sand.
All right.
So I think most of us don't deal in millimeters. I wonder if you could give us a little translation of what we're talking about.
25.4 millimeters in an inch.
3 millimeters is 1/8 of an inch.
1/10 of an inch.
Okay,
Okay,
so
1/10 of an inch, okay.
Really
small.
2 of the smallest things on your floor that you see.
Okay. Fine.
They look like looks like sand.
All right.
They look like
Like
sand.
sand,
right.
Yeah, okay, got an idea. coarse sand.
Okay.
Do you think it would be helpful to quickly walk through the 5 main options that you put in your report, and then talk about the features and benefits of each one?
Sure.
Do you think that would be a smart thing to go through?
Okay, so what I did was, we got together, we had a working meeting last week, Sia and Ron and I. We came up with at least a starting point for these options. Basically what we felt were that the committee would like to see in terms of how the numbers vary based on which approach you take. Option 1 is starting with that seed from a hatchery again, 2 to 3 millimeters. Sometimes it's 1.5. It's small, and that's with the purchase of. At the time, we were looking at a solar-powered floating upweller system in Little Pond, and that had a price tag of $18,000. And that's something that's been demonstrated by Dale Levitt at Roger Williams University. It was just something that we wanted to put in as something to compare in price-wise for this option. You could also spend a little bit less and have a different upweller, but we put that in as an option. From there, it goes into basically a nursery process. First, it goes into 4 millimeter bags, these oysters, and then they go into 9 millimeter. Midway through the summer, they outgrow that mesh size need to cut their densities down, double the number of bags, and have larger mesh size on them. Okay. And so this was we did comparisons of floating bag system and then those floating rack systems. Okay. And so where you see those tables in option 1, they're broken down into floating bags and floating racks at the $500,000, $1 million, $1.5 million, and $2 million numbers. Okay. I'll just go through the other two. Option 2 is the exact same thing, but it's using existing town infrastructure, the existing upwellers. Okay. And this is not to piggyback other seed, late seed. This is just showing from the beginning of the year for one crop and then relaying them. Okay. The third option, remind me what the third option is.
Purchasing 13 millimeter or half-inch
Yeah,
seed.
that's right. So
No upweller.
No upweller. That's the no upweller. So 1 and 2 involve an upweller, either buying one or the town on one. Number 3 is no upweller.
yeah, option 3 is buying seed from an approved source. Basically what we call in the industry is quarter grade, which is slightly larger than a quarter inch. And these go directly into bags, into floating systems or floating racks. And then it's the same thing, except you're not growing the seed yourself, so you're spending more money, basically, and having someone else do it somewhere else.
But it's going directly into Little Pond.
Yes.
It'll go into the bags and into Little Pond.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it will do that in
June.
what? In June.
Yeah.
June
Okay.
1st.
All right.
June-ish. Early June. Okay. So then there's uncertainty about delivery dates in all of this. You know, there's maybe a week later.
But they go in June,
Yeah.
to the chair.
Yes. Option 4 is buying the next largest grade that's available from hatcheries and independent growers, and that's slightly larger than a ½ inch in shell length. There are 2 tables in the report that show what the nitrogen removal would be if you started that early, if you happen to find an earlier source of seed. But typically it's going to be later in June is the earliest you can get that larger seed.
And so the nitrogen, the net on the nitrogen is you get about half as much
Right.
nitrogen from that option.
Because
that-
it's going in later.
Yeah, but is that assuming constant cost? Because obviously you could put twice as much in.
Yes, it's assuming constant.
Cost.
Well, no, I'm sorry. This is more expensive for the larger seed. But
Well, I mean, you're saying you're getting half as much nitrogen out, so you're holding something constant. I mean, you're changing the size.
They go in
But
later.
Of course you
They
could
go in later.
put enough in that you took out the same amount of
Per
nitrogen.
number of seed.
Yeah.
Look, check in the table.
Okay.
see, we're assuming for $500,000, million, $1.5 million, $2 million. That's the difference in nitrogen is because of the delay in time. So there's a,
No, I understand why. I'm just.
But the numbers are the same.
Right.
You could double the number of seed oysters at that size, and
But then you would need
A lot more money.
a lot more racks
A lot
and a
more
lot
racks,
of
okay.
stuff.
Is there any reason to keep this option on the table, since it apparently reduces half as much nitrogen as everything else? I mean, we're in the nitrogen reduction business here.
it's for comparative purposes. So you
Okay.
can decide.
Just checking.
Yeah. Okay, so then I put together option 5, which is something that we do in the industry, but also that Ron has been heralding for some time, and we've been discussing for several weeks, not months, and that is to do multiple crops per year. The first year in this scenario is it's the only way to get more nitrogen out in year 1 would be to get larger seed in early. Okay, that's just the way it works. If you start with hatchery seed in May and grow that to full term, and then start another crop in the upwellers and get that right behind it, and you can recycle gear the way it's timed. You can take it out of the 4 millimeter bags as you switch them up and put the new stuff in those and put them side to side. There are 2 things you can do. You can just take the early seed and grow it out to, it's about 2 inches at the end of the growing season, and those could go to the relay areas. They can be graded so that the slower growing ones, the ruts we call them, can be retained. They're not at risk of exceeding the DMF's limit of near legal size. And they can be overwintered along with the late seed that's still small So you have basically a crop or a mixed crop that would overwinter in the pond. Once the weather gets cold, these bags can be put in the bottom. They have to be maintained a bit. You know, they can't silt in. You have to maintain them every 2 or 3 weeks. Go out as conditions are right, and flip them over, move them around a bit to reduce the risk of mortality. But the thing is, once they'll start growing again in March, April, and then you have basically from the late seed, maybe 3/4 inch at the most size, and they're starting right off the bat. So this example was to start a late 2 million in the spring, and in midsummer buy another million, and run it that way for 3 years. And by the second year, you have you not only removing more nitrogen, but you're doing it a little bit earlier in the summer. So when we're out there monitoring, you have to wait until the end of September to see the majority of what we expect to see.
You're assuming these bags sitting down on the black muck for the whole winter are
No.
going to be surviving that and coming up the next spring happy.
Well, I don't envision, I think it would be in the southern part of the pond where it's sandy. So it isn't like,
okay.
it wouldn't be in
Okay,
the same, you just take them down there and put them down there.
Okay, good.
You wouldn't put them in a bad situation, you put them in a happy situation down there, yeah.
Although there's still going to be siltation, you still have to look
Yeah, you have to look at, right, there's some management that's involved.
Okay.
And there are other things, you can put them in racks or things like that if you want to, but there are going to be quite a number of bags, given these numbers. It's going to be a bit of a job. And there may be some mortality. So there are two things I want to say about these numbers in terms of nitrogen. These are conservative because we've taken basically a conservative approach in terms of the actual percentage of nitrogen in the mass of the oysters. We're not considering denitrification. However, we're not considering any mortality. These numbers show every single oyster living through everything. Mortality rates, you can expect if you're doing, I think, a good job, and you can chime in. If you lose 10 to 20%, that's not too bad. Some growers will keep bags throughout the winter and releasing nothing lost, but other years you might see 10 to 20% depending on what the conditions are. Bad years, 50% mortality or worse. These are the risks that are inherent. The way to get around that risk is perhaps to grow a little bit more than you're aiming for. But the goal here, we still don't have a goal in terms of what's the concentration that you're trying to get to. And that's hard to predict at this point, but I think throughout the first year, we'll get an idea of that.
Isn't the goal to get something in there, get them going, and then look at and refocus and then maximize nitrogen?
Yeah.
As you said, we want to get something that may not be perfect, but
we want measurable results. I think that's the key element. We don't want to put too few in and be able to say, well, the background noise confused us and we couldn't tell whether we did something or not.
Just, in terms of this approach, I think the last model that he discussed, there are a lot of advantages. One is, firstly, from what I understand in discussions with Brian Dudley, that he'd like to see 3 years of data, basically. All right, so we're looking now at 3 instead of 2, which was a little bit longer. The second thing is that taking this approach of using the upwellers and small seed at the beginning is that in the subsequent years, you don't have the huge cost of like $70,000 a year to buy big seed or whatever it might be, something like that. So it basically, we start with small seed. There is an investment, say, in a new upweller for the town, and that upweller would then produce the seed for the first year, the second year, but then at the end of the first year, we have bigger animals, big seed animals. They can then go in the spring of year 2, and then and keep going with these different things, so that each year the cost goes. At the beginning the cost will be relatively high because of the purchasing the upweller, but then the subsequent years there's huge savings if we're going to go 3 years through this process. And the one thing that we talked about, and this is, but year 3, we don't know, that's coming, but we have a model for year 3 right now, which is only to put in one batch of seed and not the early seed and not the late small seed, because we may not have a 4th year or whatever. So it's just thinking in terms of that, and John's made some estimates of the nitrogen removal that would be kind of plateauing at that point. But if we decided in year 3 to say, okay, well, we'd like to do one more batch of seed, which isn't much money really, we could do that. In the end, too, we haven't discussed this, but in terms of the whole financing and our overall program the committee's involved in, if this continues, that would be great. If it doesn't continue, then the town would have another upweller for other seed uses and this type of thing, so it's good for the town. And secondly, the gear would be could be sold off if the worst case scenario, if that were the case, so that those resources there'd be some recycling, and we only have 3 years out of 20 years of usage, basically, or whatever, 10, 15 years. So in looking at this, it was to try and think of the costs, minimizing costs, or optimizing costs, and optimizing nitrogen, or maximizing nitrogen removal through the process. So within the limit of the scale of this operation and cost. So at this scale, it won't do everything we need for Little Pond,
No.
but it will do significant, measurable, from the estimates, a very measurable output. And as John has indicated, the denitrification side is not included. So we're just looking at what, as Rick has done, with just looking at the nitrogen that's sequestered in the animals and not the effect of denitrification by microbial life in the pond, and burial, which has been measured to be about 50% more under research conditions in the Chesapeake area down in Virginia. So we could see more of that. And parallel to all of this, of course, will be the water quality monitoring that will show us really what's happening with the water.
Are you talking, Ron, to option 5 or all of the options?
Option 5. Mm-hmm. And option 5, I think, is, to me, the optimal one and probably the best one, because it does the sequencing, and the costs then are managed much more lower, and it allows for the subsequent years, as opposed to just saying, okay, we're looking at this year, we're thinking about the program approach, and there's nothing lost by doing it that way at all to the town.
I just had a question about how big is the risk if the upweller is in one water body and we're transferring to a different water body, that we will get a fail on our test and won't have that transfer happen?
Based on discussions with Chuck, there's been one case of one animal being positive for juvenile oyster disease in
And how
recent
long?
years. I don't remember exactly.
So it's low risk.
Yeah, but prior to that, Rick, what's your, what do you know about this? It depends on which water body we're talking about growing in. Because
Exactly, it depends.
Well, I can tell you, the idea is we do have a location for the upwellers in Falmouth Harbor.
Right.
And we'd be going from Falmouth Harbor to Little Pond.
Right.
Right.
So just to kind of bracket that
Right.
concern.
Both of them closed to shellfishing.
Well, it is a risk, though. I mean, that's an issue.
to reduce the risk well, not completely, to reduce that part of the risk of the project would be to have a land-based or a floating upweller in Little Pond. And the reason is, it's its own growing area, and the regulations are such that if you're going from one growing area to another with a different number, you have to have histology done on the animals.
It's obviously beyond the scope of this meeting to discuss the statistics, so don't worry, I won't. But
Beyond the whole committee, too.
Beyond the capacity of this committee to understand it.
Other than weighing, you already know the oysters can grow in Little Pond. the real unknowns are these infrastructure things, the acceptance, how you get access to them, qualitatively how you do the whole project, and how you eventually make the transition, hopefully, to some actual cash flow thing where it's a business and it doesn't cost the town anything. So I don't think you'll have enough for any of these schemes to know for quite a few years. I think Brian Dudley's being liberal, saying you'll have an answer in 3 years, what the reduction is, except by weighing the oysters, which you'll know right away. So I think whichever project gives you the best answers for those other questions should be the one we choose. And it sounds like that's consistent with number 5.
Jerry?
I think we almost have to consider years 4 and 5, because just the variability, if we have 1 year and it gets wiped out, Brian Dudley wants 3 years, the state may want 4 years, that the project will not be successful if we don't have a contingency plan to go to years 4 and 5, which we just don't know. Even if you weigh, let's say you use the most, not the most conservative, you're weighing it and you hope for the best and want to follow it. But
Little Pond?
we have to think about it, maybe not tonight. We want to get
It might be, I don't know.
in right
At this
away.
point,
We have to start thinking about
I think the
this
location
being
they have is
going on
not,
for
I
at least
mean,
probably 5 years.
there's some question about whether to
In
do it.
terms of revenue generation,
As long as they're healthy.
we've had meetings with Chuck Martinson about getting revenue through endorsements on commercial and recreational licenses. What those numbers are haven't been worked out, but looking at the budget here, operational costs, there may be fair, equitable ways of drawing upon those resources.
All right, well, that is not tonight's problem.
Right.
As I understand it, in Virginia, you seem to keep track of the money better than a lot of people in this committee. So maybe I'm directing the question your way a little bit, or maybe C has already done this. We have a town meeting, Article 17.
Right.
We have sort of internal working line items that nobody wants to move across any of those boundaries too much.
Right.
Even if we can get endorsements on shellfishing permits, that money will go back into the general fund, not back into the shellfish enterprise fund.
That's later.
I'm just doing the bookkeeping, Charlie.
Yeah.
How much money do we have?
Article 17 allocated $200,000 for the aquaculture. My understanding is our contract with you is about $68,000, right? Okay, so that leaves $132,000 for us to do whatever we're doing this summer.
Right, and a reasonable
Or this year.
reasonable on any project is to hold a contingency back. Instead of spending all of your money. So if we held a contingency back on that, let's just say 10,000 or 15,000.
Yeah, 10%.
That would say that there's $110,000 to $115,000
Right.
available for the program. Is that, am I misunderstanding where we're at?
I think is it supposed to last only 1 year?
Well, that was my question. The idea that we spend it all the first year probably isn't going to be a big one.
Right. My understanding about Article 17 is that we have a lump of money there, basically. And we have the table that was voted on, I guess, at the last meeting that was prepared for the article, which we'll be talking about later. But in terms of funds flow, the allocation for the inlet widening of Bourne's Pond in Article 17 was $250,000. And now we're going to be using $700,000 and $400,000 from Article 17. So $400,000, there was $350,000 total for inlet widening. And there's a mention here of $400,000 from Article 17. So there's a $50,000 a gap. So it's, yes.
Oh, no, we can explain that, and it's not a gap. But,
Right.
But it is also not relevant to
But what I mean though is
Can I
that...
come back to the question I was asking Virginia,
Right, right.
just follow through on it.
Yeah.
So
No, we
just
can talk
staying
about
where
that.
we're in without trying to shuffle any numbers around yet.
Yeah.
Of the options that we've got presented in front of us, right? Do any one of these 3 options, let alone that, I hear you favoring 5, do any one of the 3 options that are in front of us fit within, quote, the budget?
Yes.
Without allocation?
And I can walk through. If you look at the first page, if you look at the numbers on, I'd say let's look at 5 first because we're talking about it. For 2 million seed plus 1 million seed, for the first year, the budget that had a $6,000 $100,000 plus or minus contingency, it was $132,132. So that's close. So that's like pretty darn close. If you maybe didn't.
Amazing the way that worked out.
He didn't know.
If you're willing to be out of money at the end of the first year.
That's what I'm saying. I'm
Keep
not
going, keep going.
If you look at the town-owned, using the town-owned upweller, which is 2A,
Yep.
then for $500,000 seed, you're at $38,000, and even for $2 million seed, you're only at $95,000. But again, that doesn't set you up the way Ron's been talking about for future years, but it's a $95,000 price tag, and if you just buy seed, no upload or nothing, no shuffling, it's $123,000. So you see those three numbers where I got those three? So we're within shooting range.
Where is the 123?
If you look at, on the front page,
The middle orange box.
orange
Oh.
boxes.
That's 3.
The orange.
Oh, okay.
Prices are in there.
Yeah, that one. Oh,
But under
yeah,
both
that
2A and 3A, it's a one-year program.
That's correct.
Okay.
Also a one-year program under 5.
It is, but it sets you up to only have to pay $53,000.
Yeah, if you go to the second page, ultimately, option 5 is a $230,000 program, basically, or $100,000 more than we have currently allocated any place. Not counting the labor side of it and the other exercises that we've only got range for 1 year so far.
Can you just reel off the numbers for a 3-year program with the 3 different options?
There you go.
95 times 3, and 123 times 3.
No, that's not right.
So because that's double counting the fixed capital
That's
cost.
right, that's
That's why it's cheaper to do the upweller, even though it's more expensive the first year. Over 3 years, it's cheaper to use the upweller.
So what are the 3 numbers?
So is it
They're in the,
year? If you look, I think page.
wait, no, it's in John's report, right here. I have it.
Which
On
page?
Page 9,
for 2A, is that the old one or the new one?
new one, page 9,
Okay, the new one.
table 12.
I was actually, he was asking about the other options, so if you look at, can we start with page 4, which is option 2, which is an upweller and not going forward? Because we see for the 3-year program, what the costs are annually, right?
I don't have the report in front of me, I just have what you handed out.
Okay, well, if you look at what I handed out, then you can see what option 5
I trust
is
you,
for
just
3
tell
years.
us the 3 numbers.
Okay, it's 132, 53, 43 for a total of 227. That's option 5. Now let's do option 2A, which is the upweller.
At what, page 4?
Here. And that's, I would say, is on page 4. And I'm going to do some quick math and say it would be 95 for 2 million seed, 95 for the first year, and then would it be 20 plus 19 for
It
the
would be
second year?
95 minus 55 for every year after, about 40.
Yeah, so 40.
It's roughly a $40,000 a year cost. So if you took
So it's
2A at
185.
95 and you extended it 2 more years, you'd add another 80,000 to that, right?
That's true.
Yes.
Right.
So I do that as about $160,000 for a 3-year program. That's what I'm coming up with.
175.
95 plus 40 plus 40.
Plus 40, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
All right, so it's
175.
175, so we got, so
175.
option 5 was 227, this is 175, yep.
and then. so
You
that's
do the same thing with the 3A one, right?
Right.
2A and 3A, which is
3A.
on page, looks like
Make
6.
sure with 2A and 3A.
Uh,
Oh, 2A, that's in
And under that one, there's about an $88,000 per year cost
Yeah,
for
because
seed
is expensive.
seed and labor, right? So that's fine.
Yep.
So you would add to that 123, if you were at that 2 million number, you would add another, whatever that is, another $180,000, or we're at
190,000.
2, we're getting up there, right?
What's the number?
178 plus 123, so call it $300,000.
Right. But now if I understand it correctly, under 2A, because we're starting with such small seed, that
I don't know
at
if
the
they
end of the first year, we will not have taken up as much nitrogen because they won't have gotten as big, correct?
Correct.
Under option 3A, because we started slightly larger seed, we will take up more nitrogen during that year in theory, because we're starting with slightly higher seed and they grow a little faster once they're over a certain size? No. Did I misread all that?
2A and 3A you had same.
2A and 3A, that's what I was just going to say, that your report stated that if we start with a smaller seed and start earlier, we get to, at the end of the growing season, the same.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
And then the 5 gives you twice as much the second year and about the same the first year,
So,
nitrogen-wise.
What are the costs?
that's okay, so
No,
we're getting there.
we're getting there.
Yeah, yeah,
3A is the most expensive over a 3-year program,
Right.
yeah.
correct?
Yep.
Right.
Can I have a sheet? I don't know how to do
The
it.
advantage.
Lowest risk.
The advantage of it is lowest risk.
Lowest risk.
Gotcha.
And both 2A and 5 are both mid-risk. 5 says that in year 1, the cost is higher, but the costs go down in succeeding years. That was your point, Ron, right?
Right.
But compared to option 1, it's 50 some odd $1,000 more over a 3-year period. I guess option 2A. 2A, we came up with 175, did we?
Yeah. we-
Yes.
Okay, so versus 227, I'm just rounding numbers, so it's roughly $50,000 difference.
So maybe there's a break even with 5 in year 4 or 5 or something
Well-
like that,
well-
but that's so far down the road.
Yeah, but the thing is that just as Eric said at the beginning, if I may, Eric, as he said we've got to see something measurable. So the idea is that if we go a little bit further, we'll have more nitrogen taken out, and therefore we could there's a better chance of seeing an impact.
In the second.
Even if there's a lot of variability, there'll be a better chance. And so we're trying to, based on the effort required, which is the 2 million seed, was considered for this, kind of a maximum effort for this program, that we would prefer that because we could see a larger punch into the system, if there is one, which there should be.
But now coming back to your
Yeah.
other point you were making
Yeah.
before, Ron, about we need to find a place and there might be money to transfer around. If we go with 2A, we need to find $50,000 someplace to cover a 3-year program. We need to find
Yeah.
another $50,000 someplace in our allocation, transfer of funds or whatever, to run a 3-year program.
Right.
If we want to go to your option, not to your option, but we want to go to option 5,
Right.
we need to find a roughly $100,000 transfer of funds from someplace.
Or you don't worry about the statistics. You figure that even with these numbers, you won't know. With any numbers, you'll know from weighing the oysters exactly what they're taking out.
Correct?
So you just go with less oysters. You ask them, what's the marginal cost going down? And you still prove out all the infrastructure and qualitative questions, and you're within your budget.
So you're saying don't order 2 million oysters, order a smaller amount that keeps us
Right.
within budget, but still proves out the 2 points you've just made, the system that you're using and the weight that's in the nitrogen removal, because that comes from weighing the oysters. Those 2 things you would have.
Right. Just another point on that is that if what we can look at basically are 2 years, okay, we need 3 years. At the end of 2 years, we will know something. We may not know everything, we may not be, but we'll see that there's something is happening. At that point, for the extra 50,000 or whatever it is, then it would be something we would work on. But it would be kind of like a contingency thing, so that we assume it's going to work, and we do need the 3 years for the state, from what Brian said. So I think that that's a way to look at it, and that if we're in that, I think that would work though if we were working within that framework. I think we'd be, well, it would have to be a little bit more though. I think 50,000 isn't quite enough to get through year 2. But
Option 5 isn't set in stone either. So
Yeah.
if you're constrained by budget, these can be optimized to back into the budget and to maximize the nitrogen for the dollar. So you can't really do that. The only way you can do that with the other options is just to grow more of them. This is extending the actual season throughout the whole growing season, which may be more beneficial to the program.
So you're saying you could use a smaller number of oysters and get the same amount or more than you could get for the same price in something else?
Right.
Yeah.
Virginia, going back to your accounting.
Yeah.
Is there any place that there would be logic for us to get between $50,000 and $100,000 out of some other line item to move back over towards the shellfish, or are we robbing Peter to pay Paul?
2 years from now.
Yeah, I think, I'm going to remind everybody that is not on the table today.
All right.
We have some decisions to make today.
Right.
How we finance something in a couple of years is a couple of years problem.
Yeah.
Rick?
Well, Matt had his hand up. Go to Matt first.
Well, he called on you. Go ahead.
Keep going.
Well, you've got a few issues here, and you've got a cost issue, and Sia called me up last week, and that's why I'm involved, and I'm now speaking as a Falmouth resident about this project. So, but the cost issue, and then there's the question of the results that you want to see in the water quality monitoring. So those are really important things to answer, because we have good numbers on the weights of nitrogen coming out of the oysters from the literature, other projects, my project in Mashpee. We know what that number is, and you so far have gotten really good results on growth, but there's the issue of is there enough oysters in this project to really make a difference in the water quality? And I looked at the estuaries report, and I convert their numbers from kilograms per day into tons per year of nitrogen. And Little Pond needs a reduction of 3.8 tons of nitrogen a year, so let's round it off to 4 tons, about that. And even if you had 2 million oysters at 4 inches with a half a gram of nitrogen in it, that would be 1 ton.
Well, we're not suggesting we're going to bring it down to the MEP recommended level with this one project. The idea is to come up with a measurable difference.
That's exactly what I'm addressing, actually, and that is, even if you, in this project, you have a problem if it's a closed area and you can't grow them to full size. So even if you could, that would be a 25% reduction, but you can only grow them to seed size, and that's going to be a much less of a reduction. So it might be 10%, or depending on how big the seed gets. And with the variability in the estuaries, because we do all this monitoring, it's really hard to see a 10% difference, especially in a couple of years. It's going to be iffy for that. So that's one problem. The other is the design sounds good, where you move the seed to other estuaries. You know, it's a good idea, but if you get you've already brought up the issue of disease. If you get disease testing, then you can't move them. And the salinity in that pond is high enough that the diseases won't be blocked. If it was a lower salinity, the diseases wouldn't be expressed. But the salinity is, I guess, around 20 parts per thousand or something. It's possible that you could get disease. So that's an issue. And then, and the cost issue is the other one. But so I went back and looked at the Woods Hole Group report and looked at the different options. And if you look at the species that they reviewed, oysters, quahogs, soft-shell clams, those are all commercial. You couldn't grow them large. Soft-shell clams were getting die-offs from high temperatures and maybe diseases. So, but there is another species in there that could be used, and that is rib mussels. And they don't have a market. And they're already existing in the pond. So if I were here earlier, earlier in the process, I apologize for coming in late in the process, but that's a way around some of these problems, and that is if you put a couple million rib mussels in there, which there's plenty of room around the shoreline to do that, then you could grow them to a larger size because there's no market for them. And there are a few people that would eat them recreationally, but they wouldn't necessarily want to eat them out of a closed area. So that's an issue. And that would let you get the bigger biomass out of there that you would then start to see a difference. So that's one option that you haven't looked at yet. The other one is if you are going to grow oysters, you could grow them in a different area. And I looked all around town, and the Childs River is an area where oysters wouldn't have the disease risk. It's not a closed area, it's seasonal, and it's got about a 5-ton load. So, and that's, it's actually analogous to the Mashpee River physically and load-wise. So where we're doing that, the oysters in Mashpee. So that's another option. So that's just, and the cost of the rib mussel seed would be pretty low. It would be a couple million might cost you 20,000 for the smallest size seed, and it might be, if you want to get a much larger seed, it would go up from there.
We've been doing this for 2 years, Rick.
I'm sorry, I can't relate it.
I have a question for Rick.
To come in at the last minute with a whole new set of ideas is, I will say, not constructive. I will say your expertise in this area is unparalleled, and I wish we had heard from you a lot earlier. But my experience has been when you get 3 shellfishermen in a room, you get 4 opinions. And they're all different. And
Only 4?
I would be glad to defer to our consultant or to our experts on the committee if they think we should drop the whole thing and start looking for zebra oysters, or whatever these things are. But my gut sense is that it may be kind of too late to go there. But I'd like to hear from John and then Matt, please.
Well, I mean, as far as the rib mussels, I mean, you're right. It seems simple to, cost effective to sprinkle them around. But what would be the mortality with unprotected rib mussels if we spend $73,000 to protect the oysters to minimize mortality? When if you throw rib mussels out, I imagine the waterfowl and crabs will certainly eat a lot of rib mussels. And I just think, and I'm not aware of a means to grow them.
Well, you can put them under
socks.
nets like we do with cohogs or oysters. You can trap. You could trap crabs in the pond and reduce the crab mortality.
I think we have to stay focused on oysters.
I want to get back to the scenarios, and John said that even scenario 5 he could fit within the budget, and that seems to be the scenario that will optimize nitrogen removal, which gives us a chance of measurement. And we may not be able to measure, but at least it gives us a chance of measuring in the water quality. So I think, we go with these guys who have been studying this stuff.
Steve? No, okay.
What are the costs, what are the reduced costs for option 5 that fits within the budget?
Well, what I'm hearing is backing into a budget number.
I think, if I can, I think we're first off trying to figure out of the three ways that we've talked about doing this, if there's a way that's better than other ways. And Ron's articulated the advantage of this 3-year program that gets us data over several years. So we went back and did the comparison, but the only, at least from my perspective right here, the only reason not to stay on 5, Matt, would be this thing that we're raising oysters in one area. We're starting off with oysters in one area, and then we're transferring them across a water body, and we have to be careful on that. But I think I heard that, being scientists, nobody will give me 100% certainty, and I can't never got that out of any scientist yet, never expect to get it yet. But it's a pretty low risk, is what I heard. I heard that it was only happened once in a certain period of time from Mr. Martinson. He said it's not.
I'm seeing a head shake over here.
It's hard.
Aren't you doing that with every?
Yeah, everything. They're always transferring seed from everywhere.
That's for every scenario. That's every scenario.
No, but if we start, here's what you need to understand is if we start inside Little Pond, we can keep them in Little Pond. You can't take it. I think the issue is you can't take something in one place, find it has disease, and move the disease to another estuary.
Right.
Right. We're seeing in the paper right now, somebody moved something from Taunton over to the Cape, and it had some disease, and everybody went ballistic. The transferring is an issue. But Rick, you know about this stuff.
Well, within Little Pond, you don't have oysters there now, right?
No.
There's no wild oysters, so there's probably not a disease reservoir in there, so the risk inside Little Pond is probably low. But if you're talking about growing them in upwellers in other parts of town first,
Harbor.
yeah, then marine fisheries is going to make you test them even to move them into them.
Can you reduce that risk by?
Is that correct?
Oh, yes, definitely. And what
Yes.
Steve's about to say is to reduce that risk is to buy it from a DMF approved.
Oh, I didn't think of that one. No, I was going to say that to literally not put all your eggs in one basket, to have if this is possible, a source for half of them somewhere not Falmouth Inner Harbor. In other words, you have 2 incubators in different places,
that's the point.
and hope that They don't both get the disease, or 3 or 4 or whatever
Well,
they are.
you really would want to nursery them in Little Pond to be the best option. And there are ways to do that. I mean, I've grown them in window screen trays without upwellers from small sizes. If you put a lot of labor into it, that will work.
I was just basing it, I know nothing about oysters, but I heard him saying you were going to start them in Falmouth Inner Harbor and then move them to Little Pond, so.
The cost is is $132,000. Did include.
Use the microphone.
It included a fluxing, which was the floating upweller.
All right, well, let's address these pieces one at a time, okay. The question of an upweller, if in the end we use one or not, the question is, are we gonna buy one, or are we gonna count on using the town's upweller? Is there anyone here who thinks we should buy one as part of this first year mix?
I think, well, for the second batch of seed, the late season seed, we need one. In addition to the town, the town will allow, for the first batch, there's capacity. But then they're put into, right after that seed comes out, then they go into cohogs and other things. So the notion would be that by that point, we would have a, quote, project upweller. And that would then start the second.
How many upwellers do we need to do? Do we need only one upweller altogether?
One.
Yes.
Can we get it by May?
Yeah, well,
Yes.
Well,
or we don't need it until July, really.
Well, if we were going
It requires
if we were going to start with
electricity,
it,
No, but we can use one of the town ones for the first.
can we use it in Little Pond?
it requires a dock, it requires
Yeah.
electricity.
It requires monitoring, staffing.
Permit from the Conservation Commission.
Yes.
A number of factors that make me wonder if we, I mean, given the rate we do things here in this town or any town, whether we could do it in that time frame.
Well,
Matt.
There are also no oysters in Falmouth Harbor. Okay, so there's the same risk.
That's true. They're not going to get a disease from them.
Heidi, do you think that's true? There's no oysters in Falmouth Harbor? Does anybody, I'm trying to ask, you've done some sampling around the different areas and things. You think that's true?
I have not looked at Falmouth Harbor at all, so I don't know.
Yeah. It's a presumption.
another question.
I don't think
A
there's
good
any
one.
either, but.
We have an upweller in Green Pond on the dock. And there are oysters there, and they're growing to choke those culverts, basically. So disease may be there, but it's pretty limited. And it may be that there's space even there for an additional upweller to go in. It's right on the dock there. It's another thing to look into. But this is,
Well, it sounds to me like we're using a town upweller in Inner Harbor. And the shellfish are then going to be tested. And so we have to get permission to move them to Little Pond. I don't see buying another upweller to start in May at this point.
no.
True.
Okay.
Okay.
And would September work for the second sowing?
It's too late.
It is too late, I'm just checking.
Early August.
Yeah, he wasn't.
Earlier, there was an issue of bags versus racks when it was a 20% differential being presented to us. And the more recent differential presented today suggests it's a 50% differential.
The bags went down.
Really?
Yeah, two things happened. One is the bags, because of the volume, they lowered the price.
Oh, good.
It's the supplier, the closest
Okay.
one.
Have we talked to a rack supplier?
He supplies the racks too.
Okay.
The right thing to go.
He didn't go down with racks?
Even a few dollars on $145 is nothing to beat, well, for the number of racks. Another thing is the floating system on the bags. We adjusted that price too. That came down by half.
Okay.
So that basically brought the floating bag price down 50%.
Okay.
Okay.
So
we're using bags.
So it's not a controversy? Is there any proposal that racks should be part of this or not? I'm hearing not. Okay. So it's bags, it's a town upweller. The size of the seed, the amount of the seed, and the mix of the seed seems to be the three variables, and the timing seems to be the variables now.
And that's where the budget comes in.
And the number of the seed.
I think you have to back into the budget.
And for 1 year for the three?
Okay,
That's,
the committee's got to decide that.
I have one possible suggestion is we set the budget for the first year that would allow us to do 3 years. If we find the money at the end of the second year, if things are going well, and we find the money, we start putting more oysters in next year. Is that a reasonable thing to do, or?
I'm not sure I followed what you're saying.
Set the number of oysters that we put in so that the budget in the first year could be continued for 3 years.
Set a 3-year program based upon our available budget.
Based upon our available
And then
budget.
if more money shows up next year,
Yeah.
increase.
keep
But the
it-
exercise is, if you come and look at the costs broken down, page 9 for the fundamental program that goes for that we're talking about here, the 5-year program. The big ticket in the first year is all equipment, guys, right? If we, how flexible is the number under equipment? That's it's gonna be hard to push that number down, isn't it?
Well, except that it has gone down.
that's for 2 million though. That's 73, it goes down with the lower numbers of oysters.
Linear?
Yeah, at least
They're linear, yeah.
they were all linear in the earlier
Okay.
tables.
All right, that's good, just confirm.
Yeah, they are linear.
So when you're proposing to not engage in wishful thinking about future sources of money. In other words, to keep the program small enough that it could go for 3 years with the money that we have now.
And then if next year it's going well, and we can justify getting more money for it, we might be able to get the extra 50 or 100,000.
I just want.
I'd be willing to kind of throw a different spin on that, which is that the first year and the second year are key. If we're not seeing results in those years, there will be not a third year. You know, I mean, at some point people are going to say, hey, this isn't working out. So if we could put all our resources into those first 2 years and presume that if it's successful, the third year we'll find some more.
Which is option 5.
Okay.
That's what I suggested, right, is to look at the 2 years and then kick it over to the third year if it looks good. Yeah.
So that would give us 132,000 available for the first 2 years.
Well,
Within our.
it's 180.
That's not what this line item says,
No.
But the numbers can come down.
you can make that.
Scale back from
Because again-
scale back from 2 million to a number that fits our budget.
Right.
2014 predicted and removal through harvesting is 929 in the revised number here. That's going to be still greater than the 275 even if you cut these guys down to fit that budget. So, and it's going to be, I'm not going to tell you what the concentration is going to be at LP2 station, but this could be worked such that if the goal really is to keep it at 130 with this for 2 years, it's better than going 3 years.
Yeah, I think a 2-year framework makes sense.
And then we find the money for the third year if we need
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
If it's working, the money will flow, and if it
And
isn't working,
132
we won't
is
want
the
it
number?
to.
Let's just say 130
Yeah, Rick.
for 2 years.
I think you want to get as many oysters as you can in there even the first year because you can only keep them in there for a year anyway, right? You can't keep them for 2 years because they'd be too big. So at the end of the second season, they're going to be, if you keep them in there for 2 seasons, they're going to be big. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, you might as well put as many as you can in the full 2 million the first year and see if you get a difference because it's still going to be marginal for looking at water quality effects.
You're saying it doesn't cost, the second year is free?
No, I'm just saying, whatever you're doing, put as many as you can in. It doesn't help you to stretch it out over 3 years with less oysters because you're less likely to see the effect in the data, in the water quality monitoring data. That's what I'm saying.
But the way that this process is designed is not to try to keep the oysters for 2 years till they're too big. Is that what you're saying?
Right, so you might as well put a
alternating.
full number in for the first year.
But there's an early spawn and then a late spawn.
Late spawn.
And then the late spawn is being recycled for the next year as larger seed. So that,
Yeah.
so the numbers you start with, you just have to make sure you have enough money to do that effectively.
Did I hear maybe not quite a consensus, but the idea is the committee sounds like they want to go with 132,000 for 2 years. So to agree on that.
Yeah.
And you come back tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. with a recommendation. You know, I mean, just over the weekend, Monday or something like that, So you'll have it. I don't think we can have it in front of us now, but it seems a decision's been made. Oh, possibly.
And that's not necessarily 66 and 66.
No, no,
It
not
could be
at all.
front-loaded.
Yeah.
But it's not 132 and 0.
Okay.
132 and 40.
He doesn't have that written.
Is it fair to say we're inclined toward option 5?
Modified five.
Modified
Modified 5.
Sounds like it's 132 and 50, isn't it?
There's one caveat, and that is that.
Right,
the
that's why I
lake
just want to make
seed
sure.
source,
Yeah.
If there's not enough water available in town, then there has to be an alternative found. So you understand
So the late seed would have to be purchased. That's the only other option.
or enough water would have to.
Yeah, so you're going to make this plus
Turn up
this equal
somehow.
1.
The 132 contains an upweller purchase for
No.
the second one or not?
This budget number did include an upweller.
Oh, it did.
Yes, it did.
It did.
It said,
Yeah,
I
I
sent
see
him in the
fluke.
report.
What do I keep reading? Fluke.
So what I can do is look for an upwell for the town.
Oh, yeah.
Is it possible to rent upwellers?
They're actually, well, they make them where you can just dock them right up next to a dock and plug them right in. And they're a little flimsy, but.
It was mentioned earlier, and I'm forgotten by whom, that Chuck said there was a place for a fourth upweller, but we did not own it. He did not have it. You
He had
don't.
not ordered it,
He had
but
not.
if we wanted to order it, it would be available.
Okay, and you don't know where it would be sited
They said it would do.
at McDougal's. I see. So again, it's
So
in our
Falmouth
harbor.
Harbor.
Okay, so at least it's the same place.
And that's an option. I mean,
Oh.
he seemed to think that was a realistic option for this project.
Yes, he did.
Oh, okay. All right.
Again, I'm going to try to stay at the big picture of the sort of executive level this committee should make some decisions at. 5, particularly when you look at the table in there and you look at the numbers and percent removals, the 5 option has some real elegance to it, I think, in terms of potential, of being able to take some nitrogen out and see some nitrogen measured. There's a risk there about removing from one water body to another, but it seems like it's a reasonable risk to take.
Right.
There's no way to eliminate all risk. And it appears that if we set a working budget of 130, and say that we're going to focus on the first 2 years and then see where it goes from there, that you folks are very close to all of the nuances of can you rent an upweller, steal an upweller, get one off of eBay or whatever, to put together a program that will work. Is that fair?
It's included in that.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah, it's in there. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That's what. Do you need a motion?
That's a good motion.
Second.
A motion that we go with option 5, 2 years, $130,000 budget.
Second.
Discussion. Ron?
Just a question, if we did that, and let's say Sia made some nice tables, we could look at them, but if we had 1.5 million seed the first time and maybe $1 million for the second batch, or whatever it's gonna be, we can look at the nitrogen removal thing here on this table.
I think $1.5 million would be fine.
Yeah.
$1.5 million, right, that's my
I'm at the
sense.
table, yes.
Okay.
Okay,
We have a
so we
motion and
can,
a second
I mean, well,
discussion? Or you
well, the
can
only
vote?
the only question then is that if we aim for $1.5 million, if we go slightly over the 130, because we've got to have something, measurable.
Right, but you have some flex in this. You don't have to buy an upweller at that price. You can rent an upweller, you can do something else about an upweller. I mean, you get some movable parts in these numbers.
Yeah, I hope it's not
His
more.
question was, can he go over 130? I say the guidance should be to come under
No.
130.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you have to figure not going over 130.
Two years and 130 is pretty good.
Right,
Maximum 130,
right,
Right.
including 5%
Okay.
contingency.
yeah.
Now the other
got
piece
the
is if you're ordering
contingency is in
seed- If you're ordering seed, they want to hear about it now, so we can't wait on this.
Yeah, and if a decision's made, then Chuck can put this order in with the town's order to ARC.
Okay. Do we have a consensus on the size and number of seed to be ordered, or is that something that?
I think they have to work out the details with the
It's in the
130.
plan.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're going to work that out. and-
Right. I do think Jerry made a good point, that we should have a document that shows in black and white size of the seed,
Right.
the number, you know, all of these details, so that what we voted tonight, basically conceptually, fairly detailed, but conceptual, it ends up as a piece of paper that we can all refer to.
Right.
Based on that
Okay,
plan.
okay.
Yeah, a paper that this committee can see and the selectmen can agree with.
But I think the key is we want it summarized at the end with one page. This is the recommended.
That's
plan.
right.
One page, yeah.
That's right.
Not-
One page.
Not 15 options, not
No options.
not
Yeah.
25
One page.
different amounts.
One
No
page.
options, no options.
That's right, that's right.
That's right. It's the no option option.
Right. And so I think the chairman and Jerry need to hear back, after you've backed into your budget number, what the exact number is that you're ordering. Is it 1.5 million? Is it 1.4? Whatever that turns out to be.
Okay. And we'll send that around to the committee as soon as we get it.
Yeah.
But we need a vote tonight to approve this in concept, because we don't have another meeting for a week.
Right.
So,
Okay, so the motion then is the same motion.
Two-year program, maximum 130, based around the underlying premise of option 5.
further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Good.
All done.
Good.
Try to get it tomorrow.
Okay.
I was somewhat joking. Thank you. I think we have to get a memo to the selectmen who is with, and I'll work with Sia that it's 100, authorized town manager,
That's right.
blah, 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 132,000.
Right, that's-
Over 2 years.
Can we get it on this next Monday? Probably not.
No, it's too late, the
Oh,
agenda.
the next week.
Well, the actual order is going to be not 132,000. It's the actual order where the dollars are spent is going to be Chuck Martinson ordering the seed.
Right.
Does that have to go to the selectmen?
No.
I think
didn't-
that's buried in the 132,000.
What we usually give them is a figure for a purpose.
Right.
And that,
And then we work it out
Right.
right to the committee,
right.
agreeable, and, Chuck's ordering it.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay.
Right.
So that won't delay Chuck ordering.
That
it.
was,
It should.
that was all right.
Okay.
And,
Any other questions or concerns?
my only question is if you had more questions about all the other things, the aspects of the project, or for another meeting.
I'm sorry?
Do you have any questions about the other aspects of the project, the relay, the permitting,
We
Not
need a
tonight.
final report.
Not tonight.
We need a final report.
Yeah.
I mean, the contract, I know it's been painful going through this process, but contract purposes, I'd like a single final report, so you guys can get paid, and we can say this is a document, and it might be modified from the 2 reports you've given us.
Well, what we need immediately is the one pager
That's
about
correct.
what we're spending our money on, the town's money on right now.
I'm going to just jump in if I can, because you're asking questions about the relay and everything else, and I haven't been to all the meetings. I've read some emails. I sat in on a meeting. I'd like to make a very positive statement here, that having sat in on a meeting that involved the harbor master, the resource officer, John, Sia, there was a large group of people who all had little pieces of turf that they could have staked out and took ownership of, but instead they all worked very cooperatively. People have been finding ways. You thought you might be able to find a little skiffer boat that was left over from a past
Well, I
project
think we still
or
have.
whatever. So everybody was coming together to make this happen as efficiently as possible. And so, although we've been wrestling hard tonight, there was a lot of really, what I would call group effort by cross-departmental people in this town to get to the point of having a project that's got some success of going forward. But we have come to the hour of making decisions.
Right.
Right. There's still obviously a lot of important details, and that needs to show in the final report, how it's going to be staffed, how the relay is going to be done,
Right.
where is it going to be relayed to.
But sitting through a meeting where Chuck
Yeah.
was talking the details of what goes on in the
Yeah,
Division of Marine Fishery, your conversations with the Marine Fisheries and all that, I think all of those pieces are falling. But everybody's heard what's going to happen and how it happens.
wrapping
And
it
people
up.
have been finding other parts of it. So it was just the scale of the project and how it was going to have to be decided now. But the rest of the parts are falling into place through everybody's hard work and effort.
Everything else is falling into place.
That's good. Now, the one-page sheet should talk about money. It should also talk about time, when deadlines, when stuff has to happen.
Right.
We ought to have a Gantt chart. We really ought to have a Gantt or some chart. A Gantt chart I think would be really helpful. Understand? I think.
Sure. Agreed. Thank you for
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thank
for
you.
carrying it along here. Okay, next update and Thank you too.
I think you can
2 years
get,
from now, we'll come back and you can say, I
to
told you
save some
so.
money, 1.5 to 2 millimeters. See, I think it's $7 per thousand, as opposed to $10 for a big one.
Okay,
Yeah.
next item, update on town meeting water quality article and eco toilet article.
Five, that assumes
Town meeting water quality article was,
14 millimeter animals, is that right?
well, there's 2 pieces floating around now. The selectmen
Oh,
approved,
he-
We don't
this is
have
saying,
everybody's attention.
well,
14 millimeter, because you were just saying.
should we take a 5-minute break? You know, we've all been, want to take a break?
yeah, okay.
Yeah, let's take a break.
Good idea.
5-minute recess, don't go away.
John was talking about 1.5 to 2 millimeters.
All right, suit up, everybody. Okay, we all mic'd and ready?
We're gonna do a little acapella?
We don't want to drive away what remaining crowd we have. All right, update on town meeting water quality article, eco toilet article. The water quality, the pieces that we had adopted for the town meeting were sent to the selectmen, and they've agreed to put them in the warrant. They may put them in the special in a combined format with the water department stuff, but that remains to be seen. But right now, it's in the annual, and possibly in the special, and it'll only be taken up once. But either way, it's going to be taken up. Now, have you got anything on yours?
I still haven't made that connection with Frank, but
Okay.
I have a pretty good idea of what I'm going to try to do.
Okay. Anything we can help with, or?
Possibly, I'll run it by you.
Okay.
The question is still whether it's gonna be 2 articles, 3 articles.
Understood. We won't know that until Monday.
Oh, okay. I am not sure the other people understand.
That's technical assistant. We actually have. Does she have to leave the room now, Jerry?
Oh, technical assistant.
Does she have to leave the room
No, I
anymore?
mean, we met with that, the selection's been made, and we just have to work out a contract, and it will be within the budget.
Right.
You know, I can't say, Julian has to approve it, but there's been a contract approved in principle. And, you know, since Julian hasn't seen it, I think it's not appropriate to discuss it now.
Fair enough. On-site denitrification test description.
Have a copy for everybody, I sent it out. You wanna take this up now, or do you wanna wait?
What do you think? Why don't we wait?
Why don't we wait? That'd be great.
Let's wait. How about?
We're gonna carry this to the next meeting, is that what you're saying?
Well, let's see how we go here. But I think Wynn's a little more up
Okay,
to speed here on his
I'm
stuff.
going to do it in the opposite order to what we put it. I want to.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
going.
Ron. Just a second, Wynn. Ron.
Sorry, I was just saying that on on-site denitrification,
Yeah.
since George is here, I thought, I didn't know if he wants to make any comment or.
I didn't see it.
Oh, okay, I haven't seen it, okay. All right, okay.
The job just.
I just didn't know if there was a,
Oh, here we go.
since you're here.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh,
I have
sorry.
extra, I have copies for everyone too.
The yellow doesn't mean anything, really, George, other than the fact that I read it.
It isn't in your version, is it?
Yeah,
It is
well,
winter time.
What did you just hand, the onsite thing that I sent you?
Did you have a different one?
Could I have a copy of that? I didn't pull it off my computer this afternoon. I forgot to pull it off my computer.
My goal at most meetings is to get rid of all my paper.
Yeah.
You bet, yeah, we're at copies
All right.
right now.
Okay, Wynn's got a couple of things.
I've already handed out 2 things. I'm going to hand out one more thing. Just for this first one, the Osborne Organics thing, is only for the committee to take a look at for next time. I don't want to put anything on I just want to announce what's going on and talk about it just a minute.
Okay.
We did this last fall. Remember, I was supposed to go to a meeting I couldn't go to. I think I was sick or something like that. It's now, again, a meeting of the Municipal Natural Land Management Systems Approach. Is going to be on March 13th, and pre-registration is required by March 1st. And I sent it out 2 documents. I only have enough copies for the members of the committee. I'm not going to talk about them in any detail, but I'd just like everybody to read them if they wouldn't mind doing it. But I'll put forward the idea. The idea I have in mind, I'm going to bring it back next time, is that we want to urge people from the town, and maybe Jerry can tell us whether people from the town's management, the turf management group, is anybody going to this one or not?
I don't know.
I'd like
The
to.
last time, I think we discussed it with Ray Jack.
Right.
He is well aware of it. I think the last time someone went,
Right.
Yeah.
he has some concerns about it.
Right.
And that's all I can say is that DPW, the Department of Public Works, and the Parks Director are aware of it.
I'm sure they are by this time fully aware of it. I think that in connection with our work with the lawn care, there's two things. One is, could the town, could we talk with the town about whether it is advisable for them to go ahead and start using the kind of thing which
In the meeting we had,
excuse me?
in the meeting we had, I think the thought process at that time was this is too labor intensive, and they've looked at it and it's been rejected.
I see.
But, you know, that doesn't mean that things haven't changed. See, you were at that meeting,
I
right?
was at that meeting. I think the idea was that Ray is actually really concerned about not using pesticides, and he has reduced and reduced and reduced pesticide use
Right.
because he doesn't think it's right
Right,
for our
right.
town properties to have pesticides. And he feels that he has reduced most of the synthetic nitrogen and has gone partially organic to the point where his budget allows. To
Right,
take the
okay.
next step, and he gave me the name of the company that does some of the turf management, and I actually looked at some of the pricing for this, that, and the other thing, and he felt that given his budgetary constraints and his equipment constraints to do some of the aeration, I mean, I'm just remembering this, that he had brought it to a point with town properties and does it on certain town properties that don't have high use,
Okay.
but the ball fields and other high-use turf, he still uses a little bit of nitrogen fertilizer to keep those properties looking the way the users expect them to look.
Okay, I don't know enough about the Osborne approach to say whether Osborne and, what is her name?
And, oh, and one last thing, I did talk to Chip at the organic, the seminar, the thing in, I'm sorry, it was in October, and he concurred.
Okay.
That for certain kinds of turf and certain kinds of communities with certain kinds of soil, it is perfectly reasonable not to be 100%.
Right, yeah.
And that Falmouth is doing strides, and our people always come to those workshops and try to incorporate what they've been learning into best practices for Falmouth.
That's good to hear. That's one side of it, is the question, what can we do? Are we doing what we can? The second question I want to raise, and that's more germane to what we're doing with respect to fertilizer in general in town, is this is an opportunity. This workshop is an opportunity to send some people from Falmouth who are professional landscapers who do work for other people besides the town at a cheap price. And I'm going to bring forward the question, should we do something like saying we have places, we will subsidize places for 5 people to go to this thing, if we can find 5 people to go and learn more about this. I don't know whether it's a good idea or not. I want to just put it forward as a suggestion. And just read through what's here and what Sue Phelan said and see whether at the next meeting we think it might be a good idea.
How much is it?
It's $100 per person if it's a professional who is not part of the town. It's free for the people from the town. She said it would, Sue Phelan wrote this thing, she said it would be at least 3 times as much to send someone to a regular one that he has for professionals who are not working for towns. She also said some things about what he might be willing to come here and help us out if we had a program going. But right now he's not interested in that at the moment. And it wouldn't be costless for him to come here. But this is a chance to get some people to go there this time. See if we could get some exposure for people who work in this field, to learn more about this, and maybe possibly to sell it to some of their clients. I don't know. I'm just putting it forward as a possibility.
Discussion, observations?
And I'll try to learn more about it and bring back a proposal next time.
Okay, Virginia.
I just want to be clear. When are you asking this be on the agenda for a vote if we're going to subsidize at the next meeting?
I'd like it to be on the agenda for a vote.
That's what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay.
If we were, I don't think it would be a whole lot, this time it would be not a whole lot of money. If we had to have a whole program offered to him, it'd be a lot of money.
But you're saying $100 to subsidize 5 landscapers who might want to go.
So that's $500.
That's $500, yeah.
And you will come up with, how are you gonna determine which 5? Without-
Well, it's gonna be,
that's
it'll be on
why
the
it's
agenda
on the
next week.
agenda next week.
Next week.
Next time we come together.
Okay.
They have to be in by March 1st, but
Okay, we get that.
as soon as possible.
Okay.
We're meeting
Okay.
again next week, right?
The other one,
Yeah, wait, oh yes, we'll be back.
Quickly, Mr. Chairman, I just want
Yes,
to point
Matt,
out
jump in, yes.
that the town has set an example with our xeriscaping in front of the town hall, which is dedicated to
The Virginia
Yeah.
Valley
Virginia Valley.
Memorial Park.
exactly.
She's not even dead yet.
Thank God.
So the reports of your demise are much exaggerated.
It's not a memorial park. It's an appreciation park.
I didn't unfortunately bring enough copies of the second thing, the draft proposal for the Eco-Toilet Conference Workshop, which I will be going tomorrow morning at noon to talk with Tana Marie at Webner at 12 o'clock to talk over. I talked with her once before in some detail. I'm going back and this time talk in somewhat more detail about a possible conference or workshop with the basic purposes of introducing the Falmouth Eco-Toilet Demonstration Project to a wider audience of the Cape and South Shore, and to encourage participation in the project by other towns. This is my idea of what it should be for. I am not saying that this is the only thing it should be for, and I'm not saying that I want a discussion of this. But, then I listed some possible topics, I've listed some possible formats, I just put it down as an idea. And all I want this evening at this point is a vote of confidence that I can go forward with this, and that sometime in the framework, March 15th through May 15th, that Tana Marie and I could talk about what we could do and bring back a more detailed idea for next time. That's all I really want to do. And this is as you know, I've wanted to try to get things out to the rest of the Cape for some time. After Tana Marie and I talked about it, she said, yeah, we would be willing to do this. And the other thing she told me is that in June, they are going to have a meeting that this would feed into. In June, they're going to have some kind of a meeting. I don't know exactly what it's going to be. It's not published yet, exactly what it's going to be. They're working out the details to talk about the whole question of wastewater on the Cape in general. It's it's going to be the first of a series of meetings of that sort. What? Excuse me?
Fit you in where you want.
Excuse me?
On more meetings on wastewater on the Cape.
Yes, no, Tony wants to put together if it's the one I think it is, and I think, a conference where all the towns come together and they share what they're doing. For us, it would be primarily the demonstration projects.
Right.
I told the guy to be available, and she was supposed to contact you, because it's gonna be that type of thing. It sounds like it's gonna be more informal, from what I understand. So I think that's probably what she's probably talking about.
She's talking about in June. She's got some money for it, and she's got some, and there's a new initiative that they're going to undertake. Apparently, they're going to do it once a year or something like that. But so she says that she would like to have, as one of the presentations on there, the Falmouth Eco-Toilet Project.
Sure.
So this would feed into that. This would be prior to that.
Well, I think we get the gist of what Wynn needs from us. Is there anyone that has any objection to him going to talk to her?
How much are they paying? Since my name's on here a couple times.
One of the things I was...
What's your fee?
One of the things that I was going to ask her tomorrow is how committed is she to this program? Do they have any money for this?
The third question would be if they have money, that maybe they could locate this program where the toilets are instead of where they are.
Yes.
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 Nobody knows what those things look like.
That's exactly right. And they don't even have them at Webner. And they don't want to have them because apparently
Because the room is tiny, so if we get a kind of a broader audience, how are they going to fit there?
Yes, it should be where the examples are.
Exactly. You have a big enough auditorium there.
Yeah.
So talk to her in that tone of voice.
I already had a little bit of email conversation with Hilda about this, and I think that's a very good idea to try to get her to do it at that place. Of course, the one disadvantage of doing it here in town is that it will be harder to get people from other parts of the Cape to come to it.
Okay, I'm trying to, I just have I got a global question on this.
Yes.
I'm trying to understand if what you're proposing, and I think this is what you're proposing, so if I have it wrong, tell me I've got it wrong.
Right.
But you're proposing that as an outreach component of this committee's effort to, continue to develop the eco-toilet demonstration, you want to set up and run a workshop for people to get more information about what we're doing. So it's really our presentation in a forum, not something that you're trying to set up with these other third-party groups. But this is a direct outreach on the part
That's
of
correct.
your shepherding the eco-toilet along with Matt, which hence your name's on the agenda.
Okay,
so I just want to
I didn't even ask Matt whether he wanted to be on the agenda.
Well, what do you want Webner to do?
I want Webner to provide, Webner is providing sponsorship for and money for, place for and so forth, for all sorts of things that they're doing.
Okay.
And she agreed that that might be something that'd be interesting.
Everybody's worked out for the word money.
But let me try to frame
And I don't know how much she wants.
Let me try to frame this. I think what you're asking this committee to concur that you putting time and energy into setting up a forum for this committee to promulgate more information about eco-toilets is an acceptable thing for you to be doing.
That's correct.
Is that what you're asking?
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
So moved.
Hearing no objections?
Second.
Second. Moved, seconded, all in favor?
Second.
Perfect. Good idea.
You
Okay.
got it.
I will bring back a more complete thing at the next meeting, and we can talk about whether there's anything more we need to do.
Mr. Chair, can I just,
Steve?
if I lived in Chatham or Provincetown and I wanted to know about eco-toilets, I'd much rather drive to Hilda's than to Webinar. The distance is essentially the same.
Oh, I don't think
And in one
that-
place, you get to see the toilets.
And the other place you can barely flush because they have a problem flushing.
Yes, yes.
Too much information.
Yes.
Too much information.
Break stuff,
Yeah.
Yes. I guess it comes under correspondence, but we'll
Well, it
definitely.
had to do with D nights.
Board of Health ought to pay them.
Here we go.
Yeah, D-Net's coming back.
Here we go.
That was because George.
Yeah. Okay, on reports of members and staff, we have a couple of things. A letter, actually, which has been written to Mr. Carrigan, our health agent, about the proposed to be written. Actually,
You haven't signed it
it's
yet.
been drafted, but it has not been sent.
The draft letter.
Regarding eco toilets variance from the state examiners of plumbers and gas fitters.
Mr. Chairman?
Matt.
This is essential to what we're trying to do for our demonstration project. So I've read it over. I don't see anything that should be
Got it?
Thank you.
of concern.
You're okay with it, obviously?
So I would move,
We authorize the
Accept-
chair to sign it and send it.
Second.
So
Moved
moved.
and
I
seconded.
think
Further
it's
discussion?
very important.
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
I just want to show the board, this is the variance application.
wow.
Just so everybody can see in its full glory how many variance applications.
I think it's great because she wanted me to do it before, and I'm still,
Touch on this only
ready.
briefly. We did have somebody come before the Board of Health on Monday night, looking, and Dave had to sort of wrestle his way through what to do here. It did become for the full board about an eco-toilet. I think it's the first one of several we're gonna see. The board obviously was supportive of what's going on, but we did suggest that Dave Kerrigan and Sia do a little conversing about what happened both at that meeting and, smoothing the application process or making sure that it's clear. And there were some nuances about who's gotta go to whom, building or whatever, to make sure it's all fits into the right formwork. And I think this folds right into all of that, getting this in front of our board. When do we meet next week? 17th?
7th.
I think.
Oh, your board.
11th? The 11th or the 7th? So, if this gets out, we can get it in front of them if we've got to vote on it.
it's going
get it on the
tomorrow.
agenda. Yeah.
All right. Any other reports of members and staff? We do want to get back to the on-site denitrification issue on a couple of factors.
Is this,
Are we meeting on the 7th or the 11th?
7th is
Seventh.
1st and 3rd. So yes,
Oh,
And
is that right? Yeah.
21st.
Yeah, next week, yeah.
February 7th and 21st.
Good,
correct?
okay.
That keeps us out of the school vacation week. No, it doesn't. Oh, wow.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
Is that a problem for anybody, the 21st?
No,
Might be, but who knows?
no.
7th and 21st, is that what we just said?
That's our normal,
Yeah.
It's our normal
I
days.
heard
yeah.
23, 23,
No,
that was 21st.
21st, yeah. Okay,
Didn't add up.
okay. Okay, the on-site denotification task description, which has been, a version went around once, and it went back for revision, and a second version went around more recently, and Sia is gonna be the person doing it, and so she's written up a description of what she's gonna do, which has now been approved by a number of folks who have had a look at it.
I think the idea, I really took George's comments to heart from his last visit with us, which is, this should take 5 minutes because it's been done and redone and beaten and, we don't want to start writing another 3, big document. I was thinking, I'm envisioning a table that's maybe 1 or 2 pages. It tries to take stuff that's already been done and synthesize it in a form where the board would basically have like a handy tool that could say, okay, if we're going to do a denitrification system, what's out there, what does it take, what are they getting, and kind of give us a pegboard for when we hear about new systems to hang new information on. That's all this is trying to be. This probably took longer than it's going to take to actually do the actual project.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's important to articulate this stuff. I think that a significant question is going to be what's getting less than 10, but to try to categorize for the board, what gets 10, what's Mashpee got that's getting 10, these sizes, whether they've got groundwater discharge permits or not, blah, blah, blah. And that's just what this is trying to articulate. And to make sure that when the Oyster Pond Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan comes in, that there's a dovetailing of understanding, not a redoing or a not doing well enough of information. That's it.
Okay. Steve?
Well, one quick comment I have. Reflecting upon being on the Board of Health here. The same 4 engineers in town come before us all the time saying, we would like your approval for variances on Title V systems. I engaged one of them in a conversation on Monday night saying that we are about to do this. And I would suggest that you might get valuable local information to say to them, A, and I would use 3 things. There's like the 4,000 or 5,000 square foot lots, there's the 10,000 square foot lots, and there's the 20,000 square foot lots. On any one of those 3 lots, getting their collective wisdom about, is there any real change, whether they, in terms of physical space for fitting a denitrifying or a regular Title V system, what their probable opinion of local capital cost differences are rather than off a database. And perhaps anything they know, because they have put some of these systems in and have had to have them run at a much smaller level even than what we looked at, what they know about the operating costs. So you might be able to get some very quick local knowledge from the 4 individuals that we see in front of us week after meeting. And I don't think they'd, George, your opinion, I think they'd, 30-minute, 23-minute conversation with each one of them, you get what you needed.
Do you have the names of those 4 people?
I will give them that. We're not allowed to recommend or suggest
No,
anybody
no.
for professional services
No.
when you're on a town board.
No.
At least if you interviewed between 3 and 5, and I'd say there's 4 of them, you probably get quite a bit of local information.
Great point.
Good.
After our last meeting, we took a site visit to the Falmouth Housing Authority, and I think 4 or 5 members came and see it, and
Beautiful sunny day.
it was the day that the rain fell and froze, so everything was ice. But it was interesting because you think about denitrification systems in the abstract, then you actually see one in the ground, and you learn a lot in terms of how much maintenance it requires and how much ground it takes up, and what the facilities are required to make it work. It's like everything else, it's not as easy as you think. So that was useful. I think I've had conversations with the University of Rhode Island, a fellow named Loomis, who knows George very well, and vice versa, and they have a number of things that they're pursuing, and things that are in the ground in communities there, and they have a package presentation that involves about half a day that would be worth our while. And Jerry was very keen on going there and actually seeing what's in the ground.
I've taken the tour 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Or maybe more than that. Yeah. And it's definitely well worth it to see them on the ground and talk to them. Then we can pay for the bus, I'm sure.
What are we thinking about?
Well, that was a question. If we want to schedule something like that, what would be good for people?
It's a weekday?
Weekends are not okay for Mr. Loomis.
Oh,
Or-
so it's a weekday.
So it would be a weekday.
It would be all day for us. Probably.
Yeah, a couple of hours to get there,
I would think so.
Hour and a half anyhow.
hour and a half.
Do they do it on Fridays?
I think they'll do it any day you want, but they definitely won't do it on the weekend. They were pretty clear about that. It's not that far from Westport if you could sneak away for,
No, if it's a Friday, that'd be
yeah.
Would that be good or bad?
good.
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 Okay. Yeah, the one day you don't have to drive to Westport, you can drive to Rhode Island.
No, I do have to drive to Westport on Fridays.
Okay, well,
Well-
if Fridays are good, I'll ask them what their availability is for this.
I could do it the 8th or the 22nd. This is February, but not the 15th.
Okay.
I could do it the 11th or the 22nd.
Okay,
Yeah.
I could not do the 8th.
okay, 8 seems to be not so hot.
8th or
22nd,
22nd?
22nd,
So
good?
No, no,
I
they-
typically work in
No, no, the
Providence.
22nd. I could do the
I'll
15th or
probably just drive
22nd.
down the road
It'd be
anyway.
easier for you.
Great, so the 22nd?
22nd sounds good to everybody.
Maybe,
we'll see
20,
That's
okay,
school
well,
vacation.
Yeah.
Well, it's the day after our next meeting.
Yeah.
Well, they,
yeah, meeting in the 21st, yeah.
yeah. Well, and then
Okay.
the following Friday would be March 1st,
I can't be there that week.
Okay.
not March 1st.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay, so well, I'll see if the 22nd works for
Okay.
them, and then
Then-
we'll send something around if it does, or if it doesn't, we'll tell them what the options are
I
from
have
their point of
something,
view.
I have something penciled in at the moment,
Okay, well.
by my wife, penciled in.
Oh, with a magic marker.
I strongly recommend that you get like a small minibus because it facilitates his talking to the tour rather than,
Yeah.
10-passenger van. And I'm sure it's a matter of cost and
Okay.
probably a few. I just don't know if some of the ones like white limousine you see going around here, not to mention them.
Yeah, we,
People on the highway,
yeah, we-
they need seatbelts. and everything.
I don't think we can't go in a white limousine.
Well, no, that's the name of the company.
Oh. Or a black limousine.
We want a long thing.
A stretch limo.
George knows these people, I think, and
Yes, I think it would be valuable to get another perspective. George Loomis has put a number of systems in the ground, none that quite will match the performance we need, but we'll get an idea from him of the various systems available, what they look like, the maintenance. He runs a training center down there, which is, as opposed to what we have up here, which is a test center, but he's done some real-life installations, and that's what he takes you around to.
right. The discouraging thing when I talk to them was, they have lots of installations, and they get 18 or 19 parts. They don't get
Yeah,
3 or 4 or
that's what I
5.
said. You will
They're not
see-
meeting our needs.
I wonder, and please forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn here, but I think a more useful, I'm sorry. Perhaps a more useful thing for you to see as a committee would be systems that purport and actually do achieve higher levels and see them in the ground. And for that purpose, I could give Sia or another committee member the name of some of the folks who actually operate those systems that could arrange to meet. We did this for EPA. They came down here and we met them at 2 or 3 different sites, and the operators themselves were there. They pulled the covers, they showed them, for instance, the nitric system that operates in Mashpee right now. And perhaps the one that operates down in Eastham might be, I mean, those are 2 that are 2 to 4,000 gallon systems. They're clusters, so it's not like in somebody's backyard. And you could actually see, touch, taste if you wanted to, if you're really daring.
Maybe not.
And see some of these systems, along with a couple of the package systems. Because as we heard tonight in Mashpee, I mean, you've got 8 treatment plants there. Some of them are huge, I mean, by comparison of the nitrics in Mashpee, but other ones might be good for you to walk through and take a look at. Because once you get, in my opinion, once you get past the cluster type, like the one in Mashpee, which is a nitrix, or Eastham, that's 2,000 to 5,000 gallons. Once you get up above that, that's a pretty big step, and there's some siting issues that you might then, as you see them, become more aware of. And how painfully I became aware of one in Silver Beach. But, you know, I think the committee needs to sort of think about that too, because at smaller sizes, which you can see around here, and I'd certainly take you to any real small ones, we could contact some operators here. I don't want to dismiss what George Loomis' perspective could give you, but I'm glad that you queried him on, well, what are the levels that you're reaching? And I would contend, without knocking George at all, he's like the pioneer. He has more respect for me than most folks. But what you will take for a very long ride is something you could probably see here just as well, with one, maybe 2 exceptions. He works with the peat system down there that he showed you, peat installation, which, all right, I guess. And he does a lot of shallow, narrow drain field work down there because they have shallow, narrow to limiting conditions down there. Now those you could see at our test center, because you'll stand in somebody's yard and look at this, and I will guarantee it will look exactly what it looks like at the test center. There'll be grass on top of it, and it'll feel like the difference will be about 3 hours in a bus or car, and you'll hear his perspective, which, you know, I can't place a value on that. You'd have to know it after you heard it. So, that's just an opinion.
All right. Well, maybe we should think of a more localized tour for starters. And I mean, every time I go to anything, I learn stuff that I didn't think I was even going to ask about. But you pick stuff up from just being there and having people talk about what they do.
Doing the local one first, though, is a no-brainer. I mean, then we'd be that much more educated if we ever did go on the other one.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, I really want to look at systems that are getting less than 10, and preferably 5 parts per million, rather than something that's doing 19.
Okay. Well, maybe if George and Sia could work up a list of locations, we could put together a...
With a target date of February 22nd as Friday.
I think the most convenient, particularly for that, I think the one in Mashpee would be a good eye opener for you. I'll contact the operator of that system to see when his next routine run is down there. They were from the North Shore and they come down and visit the Cape of the Islands all in a couple of days. So I'll find out when he's coming down. Because even if you only had that short drive to Mashpee to see that one, and to sort of appreciate the ambiance of that situation out there, that might really help you.
Yeah, well, if we could do Mashpee in the test center, that would be a...
And the test was saying the test center's real close.
Yeah,
that would
stop as you pass by and see at least the drip, which in shallow now drain field, which you would see in Rhode Island quite a bit. They play very well down there.
Excellent.
Okay.
Let me know.
Any further reports of members and staff?
Just a comment on this. I just want to thank Sia. Thanks for this following up and researching Mass General Law, Chapter 111, Section 127B and a half, and that you found the code, because certain legal folks around in the vicinity weren't aware of this. So I'm glad you found this. This is good. Thank you.
Any other reports of members and staff? Matt?
I just want to report that I'm working with Paul Schmidt, who's the state rep in Westport, to file 3 bills. The first one would remove the failed requirement for the CSMP. the Community Septic Management Program loan program. Right now, you have to have a failed system before you can qualify for a loan. It would remove that. Another one has more to do with agricultural restrictions, which we don't have many here, but it would allow nitrogen mitigation within 200 feet of a body of water and an agricultural restriction, which they can't do right now, even if it's obvious that cows are walking down to the water. And another one would enable towns to require denitrifying septic systems or the equivalent composting systems in nitrogen-sensitive areas after they get the TMDLs. So it doesn't, you don't have to wait for the state to say, you know, boom, it will allow the Board of Health just to say.
So then we could go and decide if we weren't going to do sewering in a particular area, if we knew we weren't going to do it, we could allow then, after that, we could decide on our own to do that without going to the state to get permission to do it.
Right. In other words, if you have a failed system in one of these areas, instead of you know, just going with a Title V system that the Board of Health or could require a denite system. So I don't know. The likelihood of these going through, as Eric knows, is probably pretty remote. But it's we're trying to gain.
I would suggest, Matt, that I'm always amazed by where you go sometimes, and in a positive way. I say that. Like it occurs to me, we've got this whole Cape Cod Commission or the Collaborative or whoever these are, who are looking at these large sort of regional, you know, things.
Yeah, we did this for nothing too. It cost us
but the reality is that's, to me, that's an example of the sort of thing that should be on their plate. They should be working on to try to create a more, you know, legally clear path towards it. People can say this is a way that something is efficient. That there's not like barriers to it, but there's an embracing of getting there. So it's phenomenal. Phenomenal.
So that was a compliment.
Yes, it was. Absolutely.
No, I just make a note of it.
Right, the minutes will reflect.
No, because I've been wrestling in my own mind, like how do you if you took it, I mean, like that, just picking that wedge they showed over in Wacoit there or on the top side. If we said it's way too far away for us. But if we could declare that to be a zone and knock off 50 or 60% over time through creating a zone or whatever, but in starting to look at that and think what the Board of Health can and can't do, it seemed like there was a hill that looked pretty big to get over. And I'm glad you decided to knock the hill down for us. It's terrific.
I just wonder, in Falmouth, have there been any areas that were that have been designated as nitrogen-sensitive areas specifically? Do we have a map of those, or?
Yeah. All the
watersheds.
All the watersheds. No, I know, all the watersheds.
Penzance Point, everything.
Really? Oh.
I don't know. It's just everything I've heard from the MEP reports.
No, I'm just wondering if, because John Waterbury once said that the whole town should be designated as that.
Well, it is virtually.
Yeah.
I don't think it's designated in accordance with Mass DEP.
No.
Right. The practical is.
Yeah, the reality.
Yeah, I mean, you could take the MEP reports and start saying which watersheds do they say have too much nitrogen.
But you have to designate that through DEP to get that designation.
Yeah.
We do have the coastal pond overlay district.
Right.
That's right.
But those aren't direct analogs. There's some pieces, the boundaries aren't complete.
Well, once we get through a few of the small things, we can tackle the whole.
We'll tackle the big things.
Well,
the big things.
Right. Further reports of committee or members or correspondence?
Can you mention the water bill thing, or is that under new business? Or
George? We don't do new business here, but report of members and guests, here you go.
I sent an email around to everybody. It's time for the spring water bill is coming up.
Right.
It worked well in the fall. It might work in the spring. For the Oyster Pond project, we would like to have a list of email addresses. Steve Rafferty mentioned that there were some lists he was thinking of, and the thought, we don't know what we might use them for in the future, but the thought was that you could have an insert that goes out that says, if you wish to be kept up to date on what we're doing, and perhaps even supply input at some future time, please go to this website. Once they got there, there would be something such as it can be powered by SurveyMonkey that Webinar uses and so on. Anyway, they'd be encouraged to enter their name, physical address, and email address. And then you could either have the town software, C or whatever, would figure out what watershed that belonged to, or you could have a map there where they locate their property and they tell us what watershed they're in. That's a technical detail of it, advantages and disadvantages of each. But the idea is simply to begin to get people interacting with this and collect their email addresses so we could send out notices of meetings dealing with specific watersheds, such as Little Pond, Oyster Pond, whatever.
Are you suggesting that you'll put together a first draft of what you think should go into the spring water bill?
I'd be happy to do that. I didn't want to do it if somebody had some obvious objection to it.
Asking people for their email addresses.
It would be volunteer. It's if they want to hear from, if they want to be on our mailing list.
Okay. Our email mailing list.
Yes.
Okay.
I might have to defer to see it. I don't know, and it's probably easier than I could do. You know, how difficult it is to set up the SurveyMonkey, how much labor it is to maintain it. You know, because now we're starting to take additional, and maybe it's well worth it, but there's no free lunches. You know, you have,
that's right.
You have to develop it, and you have to maintain it. If you don't maintain it, it's worse than not developing
That's right.
it at all.
That's all true. That's why I'm asking the committee.
I can just say we use it,
Okay.
and it's not that big of a deal.
To develop it and maintain
Yeah,
it.
it's not.
How much of a feedback did we get from the last insert in
That
terms
was when I
of
was
calls and emails
We got
or inquiries?
about 30 eco-toilet phone calls.
36, I think, altogether.
Yeah,
Okay.
and,
Anything else?
and 5 or 6 emails about the eco-toilets.
But that was a
what
very
about the
specialized
fertilizer?
thing. You had to
Fertilizer.
want an
And
eco
nobody-
toilet.
And then nothing about the fertilizer, not one feedback. Nobody fed back, but that doesn't mean they weren't.
Because you didn't ask, that didn't ask them.
It was more, we were just FYI.
Right.
And they were good leads when we got them. They were good leads. They had led up to things, several.
I mean, I suspect that if you tell me to go ahead, that my first draft would be somewhat incendiary, and you would all insist on toning it down, which would be fine. But I mean, it would be, the aim would be to motivate people that they want to be told when these meetings are coming up.
You could go out of character.
It could, but not likely.
Not going to. All right.
Pretend
Hey.
you're the other Steve.
All right. Okay, let's
Be
we'll
really
be back, we'll be back in
incendiary.
a week. We can pick this piece up, but I think 10:30 is probably the end of our useful life tonight.
But, yeah.
Any further
I have-
correspondence or reports
No,
of members?
No, I just like to go back to the discussion, not the agenda item on the articles for the warrant.
Right.
And just, as I mentioned, I was away, so I didn't see the article concerning the funding that has been drafted. That I think, and I'm just wondering, the cost for the inlet widening activity, okay, was under Article 17 was 350,000, and now it's 700,000, because there's 300 and 400 allocated in the. And I'm just wondering that we have 400,000. The 300,000 is coming from additional funding from the article, and 400,000 is been cited to come from Article 17. And we have $350,000 allocated for that. So I'm just wondering where the other 50,000 is coming from.
We can explain that.
Okay.
You want to?
Okay, the engineering that we have been expending so far through Article 17 was 500,000, up to 500,000 for sewering, and 350,000 for Bourne's Pond, and they are all combined into one engineering contract with GHD. So the thinking has been that the bottom line is 850,000.
For those two.
500
Okay, I see.
plus
Yeah, yeah,
350.
okay.
Okay, 850,000. We have contracted with GHD for 450,000. Therefore, there is 400,000 remaining of the 850.
Oh.
And that 450 is
Oh, I
for both
see.
projects.
And
Okay.
that's for both projects, and it's they're so entwined in terms of the engineering
Right,
effort.
okay.
So that's how those numbers balance out without having an excursion into any other category.
Right.
You pointed out to me one category
Yeah.
that we're not going to do, and that is a subject that we probably should have as a separate discussion.
Okay.
But we are not using money that has been allocated in the explanation of Article 17. We're not using any funds that are outside of the original 850,000 pot that we have been working with.
Okay, well, I'm just, that's clear. Okay, I think, so therefore the sewer.
But if I can
Yeah,
jump in.
sure.
Just- I understand, what you- I was kind of wondering how that all worked a little bit too. And we've been very careful about not crossing boundaries between tasks, so I think maybe it's 10:30, we shouldn't do it tonight. But perhaps at the next meeting, this whole idea of where the money's coming across.
Yes.
Should get in as a thing, and we should, as a group, make a decision that we concur, and it should be in the form of some sort of motion saying that, you know, even though these aren't hard and fast things,
Right.
that we all agree that that's a reasonable management of those money, those two
Allocation.
tasks. So it's all clear and transparent.
Well, I mean, the one thing that we all know basically is that none of these are estimates that were made a few years ago, okay, whatever, in terms of the cost.
Absolutely.
And that is, and including the tasks, we assumed that certain things would happen. Maybe something has fallen out as we discussed. So it's understandable. The critical thing is that we're sort of limited to the 2.77 million, and therefore we go to the selectmen and say we need this much of this and move it around, and other things would come. So I don't see an issue with that, but I'm just trying to come back now to the shellfish for a moment, and that maybe there's a way, you know, we've doubled the cost of the engineering for the inlet widening engineering, you know, aspect. But I'm just wondering if we have this discussion, say at the next meeting, maybe, I'm not, you know, we can look at that as a factor. It's just not,
So,
yeah.
just to correct one thing,
Yeah.
we haven't doubled anything. What we have done is expended funds from there and asked the town for 300 more to make up the 700.
Right, but we could have asked for more money for a lot of things, but from the town, right? And all I'm saying is that the estimate was 350. It's now 700 that we're going to be dedicating to this. So that's understandable. I'm just saying that we need to know how we're working
Right.
with all these
Okay,
numbers.
fair enough.
That's all. So I think that there could be, you know,
Sure.
flexibility in other areas as well.
Understood. And there were probably at least 8 advocates for each area already.
No, I know, but but I don't know. When I saw this, I was just surprised because it didn't correlate. That was the thing.
Yeah, I think the difficulty was if we went to the town and said, why don't you give us the full 700 for this next phase of Bowen's Pond?
Yeah.
Anyone up there would have looked back and said, well, you've still got 400 in your pot for these projects. You know, why would you ask us for
We're
more?
just spend the 400 on already.
Oh, no, I understand that. I'm just saying, though, that in reality, though, the budget is twice as big needed to accomplish this task than was envisioned.
Well, the original budget actually didn't envision the whole, it had to have enough money in it for us to get engineering information as to what would be needed. I know there was an estimate that's there in the notes.
Well, the odd thing is it says design, permit,
Yeah.
build, and build for 350.
Way
That's
off.
what it says. I mean, that's the
But-
thing, you know, so we know that's not realistic,
All right,
but
well-
that's what it says.
350, you can't build a thing.
No.
No, I know, but I mean, what I'm saying is that this
Right.
is, went to town meeting. So this
Well,
completely,
toilets.
yeah.
Understood. If we were better at this, we wouldn't do that.
No, but this is,
Motion's been
No, we
made
have
and
no,
seconded.
we have minutes to approve.
Oh, minutes to approve, okay. Everybody seen the minutes? Any additions or corrections to the minutes? All in favor of adopting the minutes as presented?
I'm just going to make that the motion is the minutes of January 3rd and January 17th.
Two minutes, you're right. 3rd and 17th.
Second.
abstain.
Abstain, he wasn't here.
Right.
Fine, okay. Everyone, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Got it. Motion to adjourn, Seconded?
Oh, seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a long night, but we got somewhere.
Yeah, I got a lot done.